welcome to the Giants Backlog podcast. This is a podcast where four friends get together, decided we wanted to play through our backlogs, made a podcast out of it to hold each other accountable. Think of it as kind of like a book club, but for games. The way the show works is every 2 weeks we pick a new game and record an episode to release to you guys, the community. And all of the episodes include heavy spoilers. So if you want to play a game, go ahead, pause the video, go play it, and come back. We'll still be here. Also, if you like the show, go ahead and share it with a friend. We would really appreciate it. Since we don't pay for advertising, everything's word of mouth. So this week's episode is my episode. My pick was Hellblade, Senua's Saga, and this is episode 12. So I always like to start the episodes with a opening topic. The topic I would like to propose this week is cozy games. I'll get us started. So for me, a game like Hellblade is really cozy. Like I can just lay back on the couch, relax, and I love it so much. It's cozy. It's a different kind of cozy than a Dragon Quest 11, where you're just chilling. I wouldn't say Hellblade's chill, but they're both cozy in a different way. Like Dragon Quest 11 being a cup of hot cocoa, and Hellblade being a rum and coke after a long day of work. What about you guys? What are some cozy games for you? Does a game have to be chill to be cozy?
I have a question. So did you feel that Hellblade was a cozy game the first time you played it?
Yeah, once I got into it, except for one part that isn't cozy, the rest of it, I was relaxing. I was entering the zone in the combat, and it was really cozy.
That's fair. So for me, when I think of a cozy game, I think of something like Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon. Just no stress in those games. You're just farming some crops, going into town, interacting with the NPCs. It's all lighthearted. There's no sweat. But honestly, a lot of times, like, I'll just fall asleep when I'm playing games like those. It's like, it's so relaxing, and I'll play at the end of the day, and it'll just be like drifting off to sleep. So usually, like, I don't play too many games that I would say are cozy games for me. I like to play games that are engaging, they have combat that you have to be paying attention to, keep my heart pounding.
So Sekiro isn't a cozy game to you?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
me either. I don't think it's like let me bundle up in a blanket and play Sekiro. Or even.
Well, it's familiar, but it's not like cozy. It's not relaxing to play Sekiro. I don't play it to relax. I play it to like have fun, I guess. Some and they're not mutually exclusive. Like you can relax and have fun in a game, but for me, I just like the tension, keeping me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I'm definitely more on the side of Paul than Jay on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Calling Hellblade a cozy game is crazy talk to me. I don't understand that at all.
Yep, same here.
Because the entire time I was playing Hellblade, I was uncomfortable. And I don't consider being uncomfortable for 7.5 hours being cozy. So I'm right with Paul with, your cozy games are those games you turn on, and yeah, they're not as exciting as other games, but like your Stardew Valley, something that you can turn your brain off and just play and not have a worry in the world about. So
I don't really play cozy games. I guess if you're gonna define a cozy game for me, it's like those puzzle games like back in the day, the Unblock Me. I would play on my phone. Mostly mobile games for me are cozy games. Like if I'm just trying to do like puzzles or brain teasers type things. Those are kind of my cozy games. But yeah, something like Hellblade or The Last of Us is how I would compare. Like you're a story driven narrative. I love to play those games, but they're exciting for me, right? It's not like I'm like I look forward to sitting on the couch and playing them, but not relaxing to them necessarily.
Let me ask you: is Kingdom Hearts cozy?
Kingdom Hearts. I'm glad you brought that up because it was in the back of my head as we were having this discussion. Me trying to phrase this, and I think the best way to describe Kingdom Hearts is the main game isn't cozy for me, but all of the post stuff, like grinding out 100 Heartless to get like one item that you need to synthesize something for the platinum trophy. Like the experience I've had of like trophy hunting Kingdom Hearts is cozy. Like I throw that on in the background of TV. Like that's the type of cozy, grindy stuff. Digimon World, Next Order, like anything where it's grindy, then I can say it's like cozy. Probably like RuneScape for you is a cozy game. It's like
while I'm watching Netflix,
Yeah.
like just doing it, grinding, not have to pay too much.
But yeah,
attention to it, just relaxing.
I'm never throwing a game like Hellblade on a second monitor or a second screen.
Yeah.
I have headphones on. I'm in the freaking game.
You're in the world.
I'm in the world. I am Senua. Look at me.
That's
at me. I want to be Viking.
That's how I.
She's a
How it
pick.
works.
Yeah, she's a pig. That's how I. That's how I see Hellblade, though. You put the headphones on, you're fully immersed, and you like sink your teeth in. It's cozy to me.
You're immersed in a like
I get
Hell.
in hell. That's not cozy.
like when I asked you if you felt that way your first playthrough, because like
That's
I'll
the
replay
definition of
games
cozy.
and like replaying a game, like replaying a Resident Evil game is cozy. I know what's gonna happen. I just am replaying it to kind of capture some of the feeling that I had the first time I played it. I find that cozy.
Yeah, like on my first playthrough of Hellblade, the beginning wasn't cozy, but once I got good at the combat, once I figured out how the game worked, like I was so cozy, I was fully immersed, and that speaks to the sound design, the writing, the full package of Hellblade. I think, for me at least, I see it as a cozy game.
I can definitely see the combat being cozy. Like I really enjoyed the combat.
Yeah, it was something that I hadn't really experienced before. It was a very good mesh between a hack and slash and a Souls.
Well,
Timing
let's
based,
hold
but-
off on that.
That's true. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. So, I guess to summarize, I'm the only person that feels that a game that can stress you out can be cozy. The rest of you think only grindy or farming sims can be cozy. It's interesting.
Low stress.
That's interesting.
I don't like games to stress me
Is
out.
Persona cozy?
Persona.
The social sim parts are cozy.
Yeah.
I think the turn-based, like my second playthrough, I thought the turn-based combat was also cozy, but it's
Yeah.
just because I was like, I'd already done it.
Yeah, I think that I guess I would consider like a Fire Emblem or like I think TFT is cozy when I play it on mobile. I think just like strategy and turn-based games like those, they can be pretty cozy.
I guess, I have a soft spot for light horror in video games. And like just the vibes can bring me to a cozy place. Even though it might be really stressful for someone like John. It's like that where it's not like super intense, like graphic, psychological horror, but like that middle area of horror, I can just sink back in my seat and have a great time.
I'd like to make the distinction there of like you said, psychological horror. I consider those like thrillers, right? Versus like more horror games of Until Dawn or
Layers of Fear.
Resident Evil to some extent, but
Fear.
like Outlast.
Outlast.
Yeah, like those are horror games. I don't think that this was a horror game though. I never felt like scared, mostly because I'm like,
There were some horror elements.
Yeah.
For sure in there.
but again, I consider those like thriller elements. It's used to get your blood pumping, but overall the atmosphere and everything, like, yeah, it was scary at times, but it was kind of like suspenseful scary, right? Like it was meant to be her fears. So I don't know. It wasn't like I was like at the edge of my seat at any point playing it or anything gave me a jump scare or like anything like that. But it is light horror to use statement.
So let's just get into the hot takes. We'll start with John. What's your hot take? Hellblade.
I didn't prepare, so let me go later.
Okay, great.
I have a hot take.
It is so unique and in gameplay and story elements, and it's one of the greatest games that I've ever played. I will say that. It's been on my backlog for so long, so I'm glad that you finally forced me to play it. And yeah, it's a good experience, and I got to reassess my top 10 now because of it.
My hot take is a little bit sillier than that, but so she's got like blue face paint all over her face, and she's like swinging swords around and sweating and getting wet in water. It's like, wouldn't some of that paint get in her eyes? Wouldn't that be painful?
It's acrylic.
That's how the Celtic warriors went into battle, though.
Really?
Yeah.
So I guess I like the historical, because like I played AC Valhalla before this, and like there's a whole part. It's in England too, and you're fighting the Picts. So like I recognize like, oh, okay, so she's a Pict, and the Vikings are invading like her homeland, and that's why she hates Vikings. And I don't know. I like the historical presentation, I guess.
My hot take is, and it might not be a hot take, but Hellblade tells a story that can only be told through a video game. In a movie, it would not be the same experience. You know, just having you put the headphones on and hear the voices, you know, simulates psychosis in a way that you can't get through any other medium, where you're controlling the character. And I think it, through this lens that they provide to us, it adds, you know, the sympathy and empathy viewpoint to, you know, the stigma of people with psychosis, modern day and in the past. John?
I enjoyed thinking about the layers of the game and about what they were trying to do and how the game conveyed that more than I enjoyed playing the game. Which I don't know if that.
That's a hot take, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason for that is because I'm a big baby and I
You are a
don't
big
like
baby.
playing games that make me uncomfortable. I'd rather just have fun for 7 hours than be uncomfortable for 7 hours.
I just want to dive into this a little bit. You're 20, mid-20s.
Right.
You're an adult.
I'm an adult, which means I can decide what I do with every minute of my time. If I want to be uncomfortable, if I don't want to be uncomfortable for a single minute, I can make that choice, and I have.
But let me finish my sentence. You're an adult and you're afraid of pictures on the screen.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe through this show you'll build up a tolerance to it, and it won't be so scary to you at the, you know, a year from now.
We'll see. I mean, I have a lot less experience with, you know, all of the horror mediums than you guys do, and I know you guys said this isn't a horror game, and I agree. It wasn't like something that I couldn't even look at the screen during, but it's not something that myself, I personally enjoyed playing until I ended up couch co-oping it with Jay yesterday. Couldn't do it. I will say
So
this.
I've heard.
I will say this. it's a lot less immersive on a couch when you're sitting 12 feet from a screen than it is sitting at your monitor
Oh yeah.
2 feet away from the screen with your headset on. It when you're across the room from your TV, you got your peripherals, you can see everything else, you remember that you're not there. But like playing at my computer, it's gonna be
How far did you get?
not far. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
You got to the bridge to hell.
I got to the bridge and then I'm like, I don't want to go into hell.
I don't want to open the door.
Okay, so let's roll on to the art and music style. 2 words: Ninja Theory. Man, I think these guys are best in the biz. I don't say that lightly. What are your thoughts on the style of the game? Anybody?
I'm trying to remember. I know they made Heavenly Sword, which I never played, and then there was one game that they made the DMC. Yeah, and that was really good art style. I remember playing that back in the day. Like, wow.
What are your thoughts on the style of Hellblade?
Well, it's like photorealistic.
You're saying Ninja Theory.
Like, it could be
getting there.
It could be a movie. Like it looks like real life. I think.
It is a gorgeous game in my opinion.
It is.
I played they added like a ray tracing mode to console, so it's only 30 frames. But I was like, well, I want to see like how this game's supposed to look really good. I want to see like everything turned up to max, and I don't care if it's only 30 frames. And man, what a pretty game! Like the lighting effects in this game, and I played on like a big TV in like a dark room with headphones, so it was stunning.
Yeah, the art was phenomenal. They really pulled from the cultural background of it. I want to comment on the camera itself though. I actually loved the fact that the camera was always like super third, like most third person games, right? You see the whole body. I love that it was like over the shoulder look the entire time. Like just being able to have her in the view of the like half the screen and then being able to see the rest of the world over her shoulder was awesome.
Yeah, I think this game is really gorgeous. And I think, well, John, go ahead. I'm jumping ahead myself.
Yeah, I mean, it looked good. I got motion blurred out of my mind while I was playing on my. I don't know if my settings were wrong or something. But every time I moved, every time I turned, I was getting like sick. It was a lot better playing at your place.
Didn't you say it was
But
running?
that's what I remember like the most now.
Was it better after you turned it into performance mode?
So before I turned it on performance mode, it was unplayable. It was stuttering. I was getting like 4 frames a second, and then I turned it on to performance mode, and it was
Better.
It was better. It was playable, but it was still I was getting motion blurred.
What's the graphics card in your computer?
I don't remember, dude.
He has a 1063 gig.
1063. What's your processor?
I don't know.
Probably like a 77 or 8700K.
Whatever Paul said.
So you are using 6-year-old hardware.
Yeah.
So you got to factor that into it a little bit. Although this ran and looked beautiful on the Xbox One, so it looked even better on the Series X.
Yeah, this might be the best looking game I've played on my Series X.
And just like her hair physics.
Mm-hmm.
A game where
Every
they
game
actually work.
Every game fucks that up so bad.
Bad ones.
But like
Horizon
her
Forbidden
hair,
West.
like as she's running, it realistically sways. It was amazing.
Yeah, you could tell they paid attention to the little details like that, and it really paid off.
Yeah, they paid attention to every detail. Every pixel in that world was cared for very intensely.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the strength of their vision and their scope of the project. They weren't going to make a 40-hour game and water it down. They're going to make a short, concise 7 hours. Every detail's looked into, which I think really paid off for them. So let's talk about the motion capture and the live action parts. I don't think any other game does facial expressions as well as this game. Like the scene where she meets Dillian for the first time under the tree, and you can like see her expressions in her face and how she's like scared and apprehensive. I've never seen expressions conveyed so vividly in a video game before or since. What are your thoughts on the motion capture?
I agree with what you said. I think what I really liked, like in combat, was the animations were just so fluid, and I played around and I found a lot of different combos that you could do, and man, it was just so cool. You're right. I mean, facial expressions usually play RPGs and they don't have facial expressions. The only other game I can think of that did it really well is
Last of Us.
Last of Us is probably the only other game I can think of. I wanted to say Returnal for a second, but I don't know where that came from.
I know that Star Wars Fallen Order had some pretty good motion capture too, from when I played it. But they basically just turned the actors into the characters, so it makes sense that they.
Yeah, and they did the same in Hellblade. They had a girl acting. Hold on, her name is Melina Jurgens.
Was she the voice actor too?
I believe so.
That voice,
She was
voice
phenomenal.
actress for this game. Like, I tip my cap to you. Phenomenal job.
But like, not only the voice, she also acted as Senua.
Yeah.
And that's where they ripped all the facial expressions from.
That's what I was wondering.
Just incredible.
Yeah.
You know what's cool is we watched the developer behind the scenes
I
yesterday,
meant to do that.
and you should because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like she's not even an actor. She was just a person in the studio that they
She was an
used
editor.
initially.
Really?
Yeah, she was like testing out the motion capture, and she secured the role.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really a incredible performance.
Really, there's only like 2 actors, right?
3.
Per 3. What's
Well,
up there?
and then there's the voices. Well, there's Druth, Zen,
Or Dan.
Yeah, I
Zenbo?
thought they were all the same guy.
Zenbel. No, Zenbel and Druth are different, and then
Okay.
Senua, and then her voices are different voice actors.
Oh,
Her-
really?
Her head. In her
Oh,
head.
I thought they were her still. Just doing different voices. Still a great job, but.
Dillian was an actor as well.
Oh yeah, Dillian as well.
Oh, okay. Again, I thought it was just like 2 people that changed their voice because they sounded a little similar.
So then, I don't know if you guys realize this, but like when they overlaid Druth or Zenbel, that was actually like a live video.
Yeah, I did realize that.
The first time, like when I first started playing the game, I was like, "Holy crap, this looks lifelike!" And
It
then,
is.
and then I watched the developer thing years ago, and I was like, "Oh, it is lifelike because it is just a video." But it's kind of interesting how they overlay real life video, and it doesn't seem jarring. It doesn't pull you out of the experience.
Yeah.
Where if I'm playing another game and they have a live action, video in it, I'll be like, this isn't a video game, This doesn't make sense. We're so used to all CG.
Right, and I did notice that, like, I was like, okay, that was a real video they did overlay. So I did realize that. But also when you go back into the game, right, you can see that the fact that you can't notice a difference just speaks wonders to their graphical expertise. I mean, yeah, they basically pasted a real life video and made it into a game.
And so kind of going back to style, like the environments in this game, right? Being in hell, having the arms reach out of the wall, having what is that called? The Valley of Corpses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Running through Sea of Corpses. Running through the coast, with all these ruined Viking ships. There's a lot of very iconic scenery and imagery in this game. What did you guys think about those? Did you have a favorite area?
Yes, my favorite area in the game was when you're down in like the dungeons and
Yeah.
hell and the monster is chasing you.
Really, that's your favorite?
That's my favorite because of how the lighting works with that. It's like pitch black, and you just have to look around like, oh, okay, there's the next source of light, and then just sprinting. And I just love the tension, the
Like it's a
sound
hard going.
stage. Yeah, and it just gets more intense because like, oh fuck, am I gonna make it? I just love that whole level.
Yeah, this is a level that I kind of played through for John because it was scary, and I kind of wish that maybe John, you would have done this part because the tension that you feel like as you're controlling the character is different than watching
That's the part I don't like.
it.
Yeah, because the sound is just building too. Like you know that, oh man, if I don't have a perfect run, I am dead. And I did die a couple times.
I died for completely opposite reasons. I tried to do the side path before realizing that you would get a torch. So I was like, I can make it up the stairs. I tried like 3 times. And then I was like, I probably shouldn't risk it, but is there permadeath in this game? Who knows? But then it turns out there isn't.
There is, isn't there?
No.
The rot,
Yeah, the rock.
it'll never reach your head.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh man,
I know.
believed it.
But I like the thread that
Exactly,
they set
right.
up to make you feel like you have to.
Yeah, we'll get into
perform.
it.
Okay. One thing I loved about the design of this game is it feels like it's all just one continuous shot.
Right.
There's like, I can't think of any loading screens at all. Like it's all just one. It's like 1917. It just appears that it's all just one continuous shot.
Yeah,
And
like
I-
God of War as well.
Yeah,
Did you have a favorite area, Paul?
You said the dungeon.
the dungeon
Oh.
with the monster.
Gretel?
I don't remember having a favorite area. I'm like going through them all, and I can't think of like a favorite. I loved them all. I loved the shipwreck cove. I loved the bridge. I loved both the early parts, which were kind of more realistic, right? And then as you get deeper into the game, it becomes more fantasy a little bit.
Or abstract?
Yeah, more abstract. And I guess no, I can't possibly decide. Let's go with this. Let's go with my favorite graphical area was the Shadow Trial.
The Trial of Blindness?
When you see nothing.
Final answer.
John, did you have a favorite area?
Yeah, for sure. Mine's the bridge. I liked how far you could see out. You could see over the sea and the mountains. I like the fighting on there. You could kick the enemies off the side of the bridge, which I enjoyed.
I never did. I never tried
I
that.
never tried that till my second playthrough, and then I told John that, and then every time we were on a bridge, he just kicked everybody off the edge. He didn't
Every
even
enemy.
fight them.
I'd take more damage than if I wasn't trying to do it either, but I liked it. So I like the bridge. Well lit. That's a big one for me.
What about the scene with the tree and Dillion? Then that was the most brightest
You
and
didn't play in
happiest.
that.
Yeah,
That was just a cutscene.
That's my favorite.
You
scene.
play, you walk,
That's
walk through it. You get to look around. You see the
Do you-
village huts, and yeah.
I mean, let's go back to Shadow. I like being able to see far. It's my favorite thing.
The scene with Dillian under the tree is my favorite scene in all of video games. Period. All right, next talking point. The talking point I have written down is sound design, sound
Yeah.
design, sound design.
You
Oh,
cannot
God.
play this game without headphones. I feel like, but also I never tried. So, I loved playing with headphones. I loved getting into it and like hearing different voices in my opposite ear. Like the 3D audio on this game was probably the best I've ever played, and they've been advertising that as like a next gen quality, right? So the fact that it was done in 2017 this well, I'm like, you got a lot of competition for anyone who's trying to do sound design at this point. Because yeah, overlaying audios. I always throw subtitles on just because like that's I like to have them as a reference just in case. But this game couldn't even keep up with the subtitles. It was just so, yeah, like the voices would come up top and like it wouldn't even capture all of them because it was just like so much being thrown at you. And yeah, I mean, it's meant to be mind boggling because that's literally what's going on, right? Like she's schizophrenic and like that's what's going on in her head. Like it's a seriously jarring experience to have that going on, right? And so that's just the voices, but then the music, I don't remember. I'm terrible with like identifying music, but I don't remember it being like ever feeling like the atmosphere was negative sounding. Like it never really felt like it was a dull moment of audio.
I love the music in this game,
Mhm.
but we'll get into that. What's your thoughts on the sound design?
I would echo what Gradle said. I can't imagine playing this game without headphones. This is one of the, like, I don't remember, like, usually I turn subtitles off in games or on by default because I don't like the text. If I can hear what they're saying, I don't want to read it because it breaks my immersion. So usually I feel like it's on by default in games, but I think it was off by default in this one.
It was. I had to turn them on
because I didn't even think about it. But yeah, I think like you talked about this like when we were playing the game, how like you're in a fight and you'll just hear behind you, and then you can turn and parry really fast to block the attack.
Yeah.
Like that's so cool. The
So
3D
cool.
sound.
Run away. No, stay.
Turn back.
Turn
What
back.
is she doing? She
What
can't
is she
figure
doing?
it out.
Yeah.
What is she, stupid?
It's like your voices in your head are
Start
just talking
laughing.
shit.
She's an idiot.
Yeah, and then you get it. Like,
So stupid.
it just lends to the immersion too, because throughout the game, these voices in your head are just telling you to turn around, and it's like you have to have the courage to keep going, like beat yourself out. So that was really powerful, and yeah, music in this game I thought was great, lended to the atmosphere really well.
Just
John, sound
piggybacking off of Paul. First time, so Jay recommended a list of like 10 games to me in like middle of 2019, so a few years ago, and he recommended these games and said Hellblade is the number one. This is the one I want you to play. If you're gonna play any of these, play this one. So
And
I
you
tried.
proceeded not to.
Well, I tried. And my first attempt to play Hellblade, put the headphones on and rowing the opening scene, rowing down the river in our canoe, bodies on pikes, whatnot, and you get that first hit of the voices in your head, and it's jarring, right? Like it's something I've never experienced, and most people have never experienced, and for the people who do experience it, I imagine it's a very complex and jarring experience, and it felt like that in the game. But we're rowing down this super creepy river, and the voices just go, why is she doing this? She can't save him. She's going to die. You're going to die. Why is she doing this? Turn back. Turn back. Turn back. And I went, okay. And I turned it off.
So you
So-
listen to the voices.
Yes.
You didn't overcome your self-criticism and self-doubt.
No, not the first time. But like,
And not the second time.
But the
the
third
second time I got onto land, and I got to the gate, and I went into Valraven's area, got to the first puzzle, and I could not figure out how to get through the first door. This time I got to that point, and I saw a big ass hole in a wall, and I walked through it, and I could climb up on. So I could see that the frickin' ravens, you had to line up with the door to make the symbol. I traversed the entire map
I did too.
looking for it. Turns out right next to the door, there's a freaking hole in the wall. Climb through there, and there's a way out.
Well, it's a hole in the wall that changes based on perspective of the gate.
Oh,
That's the
Go
whole
through the
puzzle.
gate or not.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
John just isn't conditioned to video game puzzles like the three of us are. So
I'm not conditioned to video game anything, man. You guys talk about sound design and art, and I'm like, I thought the
It
game
looked
was
pretty.
fun and it looked good.
And sound good too.
I'm definitely still learning.
I'm not
right
hating.
now.
I think it's a good perspective because I think there are people who are getting into the medium, and I think it's just a interesting take on the design of like the puzzles. Like, 'cause
Yeah, they assume that people have played other games and will know to look through this gate to have the
No, I mean, it
So
took me
change.
a while to figure the first one out. Because I went, especially because of 3D audio, it was throwing me for a loop because it's like, oh, follow the sound. And it was going back the way that I came. I was like, why is it taking me back there? And that just threw me like completely. Because then I'm looking at the original gate and then I'm like running around the main area. I didn't realize there was a gate in the back corner because the sound kept taking me backwards. And I was like, it really threw me off. So I don't know if it was just like a glitch in the sound, the 3D audio or something, but it was definitely coming from like the opposite direction of where I
It
should
said
have been going.
you're supposed to follow Val Raven. You could see where he was.
It said follow the song of Val Raven, but we'll get into it.
Let's get into the writing. Well, first I have on your voice acting. We already talked about that, but I just want to touch on the performance of the darkness or your father. Incredible voice acting, I think, all around.
Oh, I never picked up that was her dad.
I got that. But
Yeah,
also,
we'll get into that.
That's like a big plot point.
but also, yeah, I liked his voice. Again, I thought that it was just two voice actors because like the male voices were similar, so I thought it was like
The darkness and the dark side. There.
yeah, and Druth was just that with an accent, and then Dillian was like a different accent. So I actually thought that it was like tonally the voices were the same person, but I guess not.
I think the voice acting in this game is top tier.
It is. And it was even more top tier when I thought it was the same person. Because I was like, that person's the greatest voice actor of all time.
It's like Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, exactly.
Just does like 4 voices
Mm-hmm.
in every show he does.
Exactly. That's what I legitimately thought. But
There are people who do that. Like I could like, if you told me that, I wouldn't be like, oh no way, because there definitely are really talented voice actors who
absolutely.
can do multiple characters.
yeah, shout out to the industry.
Yeah.
Shout out Troy Baker.
Yeah, Troy
Laura
Baker,
Bailey.
Nolan
Shout out to
North.
the industry.
Yeah.
All the voice actors. Don't sell us NFTs though.
So it kind of leads into the writing. I think there's so many good quotes in this game. Just throughout, this game is written. It's a masterpiece in my opinion.
It's a what?
Masterpiece.
I loved when you would find the lore markers, and I just loved hearing Druth
Yeah.
give his little anecdote.
I always stayed like with it. As soon as it started to fade, I was like, okay, I guess I have to
gotta
stop.
go back.
Yep, I gotta stop.
Yep.
And I always listen to the whole thing because I love
It's so
I
interesting.
love Norse mythology and Norse lore. So like some of the sagas I already knew, but I just wanted to hear it again. And like, yeah, those were my favorite point. I sent a picture to Jay. I missed like 5 of them without a guide, and I thought that was pretty like incredible of me to be able to find that many.
I looked for them too. I didn't check how many I missed, but I imagine I found most of them as well.
Yeah, I just took a picture of the last one because like if you notice the ring around it,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they turn white. Each of the letters turns white. I figured that out halfway through. So I was like, I had already missed like 3 of them, and I was like, shit.
Not
Okay.
going back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I got red. I know that, and there were dots in between, so you can identify which chapter they were in. So it's
Smart.
like, okay, next chapter, I'm looking for 3. Okay, I found my 3. Now I'm good. So like that was helpful for me, and I really liked that. Actually, I've never seen a collectible system that was environmental. Yeah, that you don't have to open a menu and see, and like it tells you as you're progressing. So I loved the lore stones. That was probably my favorite collectible system, and you know how much I love my collectibles. Shout out to Kingdom Hearts and Digimon and Uncharted and everything that I've collected over the years.
Oh god, you do the collectibles for Uncharted?
I did. I've done so many collectibles in my lifetime, and do I enjoy most of them? No, but I do them anyway. These ones I enjoyed though. Good job, Hellblade.
Yeah, and it speaks to the writing of the game, right?
Right.
And some of these scenes, like they just write it so well, so convincingly. You know, there was a part where the darkness or your father Zimbel is talking to you, and curse. Through this darkness, you will find it, and your sword still beats a heart. Like, just it's written so like poetically and well, like, and I don't know if I appreciated it fully on my first playthrough. On the second and third, like, I was really hanging on to every single word.
What about the fourth or fifth?
To be determined. I'm thinking about doing a yearly playthrough.
Yeah,
Of this.
He said he was going to start speedrunning the game.
Yeah.
Clipping the wall to the final boss.
They have
No,
it in like
Glitchless speedrun.
Glitchless is 2.5 hours.
No way.
I know.
That's impressive. What's glitch?
What was it?
136.
It's pretty good. Yeah, we should watch those after this.
I started watching one this morning. You can kill most of the NPCs in 2 hits if you do a certain combo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you just know where they're going to spawn and already be attacking that.
Yeah.
Like as they spawn in. Okay.
Wish I knew those combos.
It was the one, it's like heavy attack and then you stab them and then kick them off your sword.
Yeah.
That would kill all the regular guys with just the sword. All right. Next up, the soundtrack. I love this soundtrack. The going into the closing credits, and it has that sort of upbeat song. The boss fight music when you're fighting Hela, it's just so hopeful, and you just feel so powerful, and the music adds to that. Fighting Sutir or Valraven, it has very Celtic music, and it's very dramatic and epic, and man, I love the music in this game.
I think I mentioned earlier, I struggle with like focusing on soundtrack in particular and music. Like, I know that it's immersive and I love it, but it's not something that's at the forefront of my memory. So actually, like, I need to listen to the soundtrack by itself while I'm not studying anymore, but while I'm working or something along those lines to really fully grasp it. But like, yeah, I think that I can't really talk to it too much, but
it just does such a good job of adding to the atmosphere.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
At the end of the game, the music is so good. Like, you overcome your self-doubt, and now you're just one-hitting basic enemies, and the music just adds to that feeling of being powerful. It pumps you up.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, oh, I'm a badass. And then like you said, the music in the boss fights just so atmospheric. Like, I don't know if I would listen to the soundtrack just by itself when I was at work, but like when you take it into account of what you're doing in the game and the environment, it just adds to it. Value added for sure.
That's when you start fighting Sutir.
That's awesome. Love that.
Let's fucking go. I'm about to
It just
battle.
pumps you up.
Yeah.
Fucking love it.
No.
And it's on theme, it's on the historical theme. John, what do you think about the music?
All I can do is echo you guys. My only real note about music that I have is in the final boss fight, just like what you said, how powerful it makes you feel, how it just makes you feel like you're invincible and you're taking on 30 enemies at a time and you feel invincible. So it just makes you feel so good. But when it comes to music, that was my only real note that I made.
Yeah, that was like my favorite part of the game.
Same. Absolutely. Felt so good.
So up next, what are your thoughts on the length of the game?
Perfect.
I love short games.
Yeah.
And by short games, I mean a 7-hour game is about as long as I want a game to ever be. It feels long to me.
Yeah.
I don't care for
Beaten one day.
like
Yes.
I am a movie over. Well, a 7-hour game's gonna take me a month if I like it. Like, I don't play games like that. But with you guys, I'll beat it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm much more casual than you guys are. I don't beat games in one day. But like, I'm a movie over TV show guy. I like my short story to be short and confined and to experience it without having to dedicate 100 hours to it.
Question: how long is RuneScape?
Answer.
RuneScape's not a game.
It's a way of life.
It's a life. Yeah.
It's a lifestyle.
I was gonna say it's a second life, but for John, it's a primary life. I feel like.
No, it's not.
For me, length is all about scope. What's the scope of the game? Like you talked about how they could have made the game longer, but they would have had to water it down and make some sacrifices. And I think this game is all killer, no filler.
Mm-hmm.
I played AC Valhalla, and that game is also
too long.
It's too long. It's way too long. It's all
Yeah.
watered down filler.
I'm 60 hours in, and
You're
I
not
don't
even
even think.
You're like barely over halfway.
Exactly.
And it's
Stupid.
Like, this game, they just paid attention to the detail, and it's as long as it needed to be for what they wanted to do.
And I can't even play it anymore. Side tangent.
Why?
Because I played it first on PS4, saying that they would be able, when I got the
You're talking
PS5,
about
AC
Valhalla, that I would be able to play it on PS5. You can't. I tried transferring the save 6 times. It overwrites it.
So here's a question I have
Every
for
time.
you guys: is that AC Valhalla is an example. You've spent 60 hours on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know you're only halfway. You don't want to spend another 60 hours on it, and your file gets corrupted. You're happy about that, right? Just don't even put it on your backlog. X that shit out and never play it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point,
Okay,
yeah, because I'm
well,
not going to restart it.
Yeah, but I was in a similar spot to Gradle with that game. Like, I had been about 60 hours in, and I was like, wow, my file's not, like, I want to beat it. I already spent 60 hours. I just want to see how it ends. So then I played another 40 hours.
Yeah, no, I need to. Well, you just brought my PS4 back, so I have to play it on PS4.
Hmm.
I wanted to play it on PS5 because of the improvements.
It's the
but
sunk cost fallacy.
Exactly.
It's like, well, I already spent this, so now I should just spend more time.
I'm going to spend 40 hours on a game that I spent 60 hours figuring out I don't care for. Just spend that 40 hours on a game you like.
I know. Well, it's
It's
easier
not
said
that I
than done.
didn't care for it. I did like it for the 60 hours I played it. But yeah, that was the nail in the coffin of why I haven't gone back, is because I bought this PS5 and they have the PS5 version, and now I can't play it. So Ubisoft, you lied.
It just hurts
for direct transfer. You lied on your accounts because I can't fucking log in. I've tried to recover accounts that I newly created, and you
Works on
still can't
Xbox.
get in.
I'm just plugging that. It works on
Yeah,
Xbox.
it probably does.
Do better, Sony.
Sorry for the tangent, Jay.
Yeah. Tangent. Sorry, tangent.
I want to hear your thoughts on game length, Jay.
That's the perfect package, I think.
Yeah.
And it really depends on the game. There's games that are 100 hours, and I wouldn't take out a second of it.
Right.
Yes.
And
Right.
there are games like this that are more of a condensed, focused package. And again, it just depends on the scope, as you said. Depends on what the game's going for.
Yeah.
A game like Persona, I wouldn't take out any of it, right?
I want to,
And I love every second of the 100 hours. You know, it's
Mhm.
more of a commitment, but
Yeah.
you're rewarded for that commitment
Right.
you make at the end of the game
Right.
or throughout the game. A game like Assassin's Creed, I would never play again, except for maybe Black Flag. It's on my backlog. But to me, that's just like wasted with filler. And I think in a lot of those games that are more focus tested, you know, most people like this, there's more filler, and it just wastes your time. And as I've said in previous episodes, I'm not very forgiving on games that waste my time.
Yes.
So in a short game like this, that has a point, it tells a story, you're in, you're out in a day, 2 days, a month in John's case scenario, then, you know, if it helps them make a better game, and it's all about artistic view, right?
Right.
What does the designer have in mind when they make the game? Do they want to make the game 7 hours or 100 hours or 40 hours? It all goes into their design, their package, their viewpoint, even difficulty. Like, it all comes together in this overarching topic that's game design.
Yes.
And the length goes a lot into that. If
Yep.
Hellblade was 100 hours and mostly filler, it wouldn't be one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, if a door had like 10 different locks and you had to go fight 10 different bosses instead of the 2 at the beginning,
Yeah.
it's not really adding much to the game. It's just filler.
Adding more content.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And
the
I agree.
developers show restraint, and as a
Yeah, because they
player-
could have put five Norse.
well, as
gods
a
at the
player with
beginning.
limited time to spend on games, I appreciate it.
I would rather them spend a lot of time and detail on 2 really good bosses than having to split the budget across 5 and now they're all
Right.
worse.
Exactly. Now, do I want to see a million Norse gods in Ragnarok? Yes, 100%. But also, different game, right? And
Different
like you
scope.
said, different scope. And like you said, comparing a Persona to this game's a story-driven, action-oriented narrative. You're not going to spend more than, I would say, 12 hours in that experience. Like anything longer than 12 hours, unless you actually have a story to tell. Like
Yeah.
Last of Us 1 was about 16. Last of Us 2 was about 22, I want to say.
Closer to
And
30.
like neither of those games I felt like had a dull moment, but well, they had some moments that could have been edited out, but yeah, within the scope of telling a story, you need to be committed to that, and you need to be, like John said, a movie. If you're going for a movie experience, cut that shit down. If you're going for a experience of a Persona game, completely different. You're cramming RPG elements with
Visual novel.
visual novel. Thank you. I was blanking on that. So like, yes, you're gonna have more time committed to each of those developments,
Yeah, I mean,
respectively.
it's the scope of the story. Like, here's
Yeah.
our story. How long should the game be to tell this story? Like, you could trim AC Valhalla from a 100-hour game to a 15 or 20-hour game, and it would be better. It would be a better game.
Absolutely. I think that the open world fatigue at this point kind of deters a lot of those elements. I'm going to say Horizon, I didn't give it a fair shot in the beginning, and then I tried to, but I ended up like mainlining it because I got sick of the side stuff, the unrewarding filler side stuff. I think that is a curse to a lot of these open world games that we discussed in last episode.
Too many. I just want to make one point. Too many studios, Ubisoft, EA, they come up with a story. It's a 15-hour story, and they think, all right, now how can we pump this thing out to be a 50-hour game?
Right.
And all the stuff they pump in just sucks.
Exactly.
In
It
general.
doesn't add to the value. If you were to mainline the game, that's the difference between we'll talk about it in our exclusive, but in Yakuza, right? You mainline that game,
Yep.
and you didn't get the same experience that Jay and I got.
Still loved it though.
Exactly. But it's a completely different experience, and the side stuff adds value to that game. That game is that world.
Yeah.
A lot of the open world games nowadays, they don't do that. And I think that if they had done that in Hellblade, just to tie it all back together, I think that if they had done that in Hellblade, I would have hated it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't do a bunch of side crap that I didn't want to do made it the perfect package, as Jay said.
Hellblade is like a love letter to video games.
Could you imagine Hellblade like going up to an NPC and saying, "All right, now go find me 10 stones."
Yep. Oh, you already did the Valrevan things? Now do it 10 more times
Yeah. Yeah.
for a golden dangly.
And I'm not sure I really understand like the point. You see all these Ubisoft that pump in a bunch of filler,
There
and
is
I
none.
get it to make your game longer, but what is the business case to having a longer game? Is it just, oh, we can boast it's 100 hours, so it's more worth your $60?
Yes.
Or is it so that the people on your friends list always see that you're playing a game for a long period of
Yeah,
time, they're more
that's-
likely to buy it? I don't know.
It's something along those lines. It's you're buying market. I mean,
I think so.
you're buying
Sure.
people's times. You're buying people's time at this point.
Wow.
We're buying people's
I'm
time.
gonna
Thank you for
get
listening.
100 hours out of my $60 for this game,
Yeah.
and that this works. I mean, AC Valhalla and like Far Cry games always like sell great.
Yeah.
So it just
it's getting fatigued. So
Like,
it
Far
was
Cry is a series that's got a lot of filler, but I still love it.
yes, because it just is so goofy.
Yeah.
The side content isn't like special, but at least it makes you giggle.
well, yeah. We just Taylor and I just finished the Tiny Tina standalone DLC, and yeah, every single side thing in there makes you chuckle. It makes you want to do it. So like, yeah, if they do it well and they put it in there with a purpose of just making it enjoyable.
I also
Right?
don't think Far Cry is as bloated as AC Valhalla. Like Far Cry
No.
6 isn't as bloated as Valhalla was.
Valhalla was ridiculous, and I 100% in too many areas, and there were too many collectibles, and there were too many. I wouldn't even say there were too many side missions. Like a lot of what you're doing in there is just
the
fucking
same
running
fucking
around.
thing. Go to this town,
Yeah.
do a bunch of fetch quests, go to the next town, and there's 40 towns.
It's too much.
Okay, so final part in this section that I wanted to touch on. What are your thoughts on portraying mental illness in the video game?
I'll start because I said it earlier. I think that it's jarring to have the voices in your head, but it's supposed to be because that they definitely consulted psychologists very immensely in this game. They put it at the forefront of like this portrays mental illness in a way that's accurate to what these people are experiencing. I mean, you get schizophrenia, you get the depression aspect, you get a lot of mental illness that is working to overcome in Senua's case. And the blurred line of, and we had texted about this, the blurred line of reality versus like psychosomatic hallucinations was like, it was so interesting, and it could only be told in a video game.
So John texted me and he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Nothing."
Nothing.
And he said, "You want to help me get through Hellblade?" And I said, "Is it too scary or too hard?" And he responded, "It just makes me uncomfortable." And I think that's exactly what the developer was going for.
Right.
In this realistic representation of mental illness. And in the dev diary, it's called Senua Psychosis. They brought in actual people with these mental ailments and talked about their lived experience. You know,
Right.
They would see the world kind of as like a kaleidoscope. They would have periods of time where everything went completely black and they heard scary noises, right? They would find patterns in the world that weren't necessarily there for people without mental illness, right? All of that they worked into the game in an incredible way, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I think, in the game, I already said this, but in a game more than any other medium, you put yourself in the shoes of the character, right? You can watch a movie and it's somebody else doing a thing, right?
Yeah.
You can read a book and it's somebody else doing a thing. But in video games, you kind of become the character and you get to experience it on a more personal level. And I think making this game has kind of helped people understand mental illness a little bit better than if they're just watching the movie and they're like, "Oh, that person's crazy." There's not the and empathy that you feel when you get to experience something so vivid like this.
Right. Like you are Senua, and yeah, you don't get that as it is a third. It's so weird, right? Because it's a first person and a third person at times. So
Well, I think we're another voice in our head.
Have you guys
exactly. That's
ever
what I'm saying.
seen
It's
the
cheap,
movie
but it's
A Beautiful Mind?
I haven't.
I have not, but I've
It's
heard
a
things.
movie about this guy, Dr. Nash, who he has schizophrenia and he sees people who aren't there and hallucinates and hears voices, and it's like just to kind of compare and contrast. It's like, yeah, I feel bad for Dr. Nash, but I don't empathize the same way that I do with Senua, because like I've been in Senua's shoes. So I think that's like the power of doing this game in a video game versus a movie.
I just watched American Psycho, and that was a mess all over the place.
John, what are your thoughts? You've been quite a while.
I mean, it's hard to speak on, right? Like, I have no experience with this. I can say that the game did a great job of portraying something that I have no experience with. So it's hard to make comments on it. But I know they did do a lot of work with people who do experience these conditions and people who understand them. So if they say that, this was a great simulation of what their experiences are, then, I can only believe that. And like Jay said, there is an empathy that comes with it, because like you said, when I was playing this game, I couldn't get through it myself. I was just completely uncomfortable, and I think about turning it back on, just not want to do it. So, like, that's some people's lives, and it's just like kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, they don't have the option to just turn it
To
off.
not turn it on back on, right?
I think like though you said like you don't have the experience. I think this game like kind of gives you a taste of what it would be like to have like when you play with headphones, the
Perspective.
voices in your head. Just, like obviously just a little window into that world that other mediums just can't do. That's what's so cool. Like imagine you're sitting here and we're talking and you just hear voices like while we're talking that say like, oh, they think you're stupid and you don't have any good thoughts on this game.
They're not
That's
even
what
your
my
friend.
that's what my self-conscious
Yeah.
screams every time I'm doing this podcast.
Mhm. Same here. Like,
Senua
they
is
don't
just,
even like you.
it's just so cool. She just overcomes all of that self-doubt. It's really inspiring.
They're using you for your puppy and house.
Yeah.
All right, now let's get into the gameplay. Start off with the combat. We already really talked about it a lot, but really fun, really fluid. As Paul was saying, it's kind of generous on its parry timing, generous on the dodges. So it's not like overly difficult,
Yes.
but it makes you feel powerful, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so just talking about what we talked about before, the black rot not actually being able to get to your head. Didn't realize that. Always assumed, that I'd get to some point and it would be freaky because I'd be close to getting to my head. It creates that sense of danger because the combat really isn't that difficult, right?
No.
Like you said, you can dodge roll anything, you can parry just about anything, so you have different options with that.
Block. I don't think
Yeah.
there's any attack that's unblockable.
Yeah, there is.
They
The-
just
the big
break your
guys.
guard. Yeah, they just break your
No,
guard.
big guys will knock you down.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it causes like you don't really have a health bar, right? So it's kind of like
Yeah, hard to say.
hard to say. But yeah, I don't think I ever died. I think I died 2, maybe 3 times of all the battles. So yeah, I was never worried, like John was saying, about the rot
Mm-hmm.
until
But at least
until
it
I
gives you
started
something,
until I started like trying to go off the beaten path in the shadow boss or the in the shadow area. Like I said, I tried going to the side to see if there was a lore stone there, and I died 3 times, and I was like, shit, should I not keep doing this because I'm gonna have to start the whole game over? So then I looked it up.
It was growing even in sections where you died out of combat?
Yes.
Yeah. I died like 3 times on the first area with the fire puzzles because I wanted to talk about this, but I didn't know how to sprint. So I was trying to walk from the fire puzzle to where I had to get, and I just couldn't make it. And then I finally like paused the game, and I'm like, oh, sprint. That's how I run. But there's no tutorial in this game that I remember. Like you just pause the game, and it's got all the lists of inputs to attack. So I just kind of studied that, and then it's really intuitive. And then like what it doesn't tell you is if you kind of vary your timing and mix in some attacks, you do like some cool combos and just feel like a badass because doing these 6 sword moves. There's like an uppercut one that will knock them over that I used a lot. Really cool.
Yeah, I tried a bunch of combos. I was trying to just see all the cool animations they put in there, and like, yeah, that makes you feel like a badass.
There was a few things that I didn't do on the first playthrough, right? Like
use the circle button.
halfway through the first playthrough, I didn't know you could block, so I dodged everything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I found out you could block and you could parry, and I was like, "Holy shit! This makes me feel so much stronger." In the first playthrough, I never did running attacks. In the second playthrough, you could run up and drop kick people. You could run up and stab them.
Yeah.
You know,
run up and slash.
If you dash and then do an input, it'll be different. Like you'll tackle somebody if you're doing the kick input. You'll stab them real quick if you do the quick attack input after a dash. You know, if you dash to the side, you do a little spin slash with the quick attack. I mean, it seems like the combos are endless on the way you could do it. I played on Xbox controller.
Yeah.
Like XYX, it's a different combo than XXYY, you know?
Yeah.
So it's putting all these things together really makes for a robust, cool battle system. I thought that was always fun. I was never like, oh shit, I have to do combat again. I was always like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so I think I texted you that. I was like, oh yeah, I see the DMC DNA in this game. Just like really good combat. And then even the parry systems, it reminded me of like Sekiro's combat. You just get a perfect parry and then it like slows time when you get a parry. It's really cool. And the focus system is really cool too.
Yeah, that was awesome.
What's DMC?
Devil May Cry.
Another like combat heavy third person melee game.
Dark Souls is modeled after Devil May Cry?
No. Devil May Cry is a hack and slash. Fast paced combat. Try and keep your combo going at all times with guns.
There's like a combo number. It's not really like difficult. It's just like how high of a combo can I get?
How flashy can I be?
Yeah. How do I beat these people with style?
Yeah, you don't have to think about your moves in Devil May Cry. You just mash the buttons over and over and alternate them every once in a while.
You can do that if you want to, but you can think about your button inputs and then you can do really cool shit.
Anything else on the combat system, guys? John was saying something that I never thought through. Even on my third playthrough, he would save his focus for when he was down.
Mm-hmm.
So that
I did too.
He had plenty of time to get back up.
Yeah, I could get knocked down like 8-10 times and always get back up.
If you parry when you're hurt and you're like moving slow, if you get a parry, it like resets you. You're not like completely, but you get out of like your feeble state.
Yep.
So I just always would get a
parry.
parry.
You parry
like
or you do 2 hits.
Now when you're really damaged, you would move slower. You acted wounded. I thought that added another layer of depth to it. Like, oh shit, I gotta get this parry or else
it's game over.
I'm down again.
Yeah, like on your sword and you took longer and it's just like a shitty slash.
And I've died a couple times where I get knocked down by one person and then the other person's already in their attack animation and I get
piled on.
I get got. But I think even on like a second or third playthrough where you're really familiar with the battle system, you can just go in and decimate. You know, it feels even better.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on combat system? Okay, I thought it was fun. The combat.
It is fun.
It was enjoyable.
That was the greatest
sure.
part of the game for me.
It was great.
The combat.
Better than the story or the visuals.
I thought thinking about the story after the game was beaten was pretty interesting, especially like after watching the developer behind the scene. But when it comes to like the actual like mechanical part of the game, like the combat outshined.
All right, and hand in hand with the combat, or the other thing you're doing in the game is solving puzzles. So there were a couple variations on the puzzles, but most of them were line up a thing and look at it. And this speaks to the developers taking into account the mental illness, people with mental illness finding patterns in, you know, random or meaningless things, they'll see a meaning to it, right? So her Senua's was Druth taught her all these Norse runes, and in order to open this door, I have to go find this rune somewhere. Or for the Valraven part, I have to line up these ravens. Or for the parts where you have to make like a staircase or a bridge, you have to line up the parts of the environment that are kind of like a kaleidoscope, fragmented. So, this part to me wasn't always the most fun, but I think it adds to the overall story. It adds to what they're trying to do in portraying mental illness in somebody who was back in around the time of the Vikings, and how there was stigma against them. So,
yeah, I mean they had no understanding of that. It's a curse, right?
Yeah.
It's her curse that she has.
She
was cursed by the gods.
We'll get into more of that when we go into the story, but the puzzles, what do you guys think?
Well, I like the rune puzzles because they kind of forced you to explore the environments that you were in.
Yeah.
We've been gushing about how gorgeous this game is, and you'd be at a locked door by runes, and then you just had to go walk around this entire area to find the patterns. So I like that.
Yeah, and I do like how they led you in the right direction too. Like, because if I were to just like look around and try and find it without the runes flashing on the screen, I would have never ever found it. But it's like, okay, I'm getting warmer.
Yeah,
like, so they definitely needed that for
it's
sure.
accessible for sure.
like I'm just running around looking for this Y shape between two trees at any point in this environment, never gonna find it.
Yeah, I got a little tired of these by the end of the game.
Yeah.
But I did like how they caused you to explore the environment.
Well, I think they iterated on them, right? At the beginning, that was kind of basic, and then at the end, it was like, oh, you have to light this light and see the reflection.
Yes.
You have to turn this light on up here, so shadow casts down there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as you spoke to the lighting in the game, it all kind of gels. John, what do you think of the puzzles?
Puzzles were fine. I understand why they were there and the intention of them, but I don't know, just forcing you to get through 4 gates to get to each of the bosses and stuff like that. For me, they're a little too many.
My favorite puzzles in the game were the fire puzzles.
You had to find the route back.
Yeah, I just loved how it just changed the entire environment. All the shit's on fire, and it's the music again. It's just pumping, and like once I figured out how to sprint, I could get through them. But I like that a lot. The fire ones are cool.
Yeah,
Fire ones are cool. I liked my favorite rune puzzle actually was the timed rune puzzle, where you got like the fire beast chasing you and the one house labyrinth thing, and you have to find the 3 runes while it's chasing you.
John,
so like I find myself like sprinting away, like get away from me. Okay, now I can look for the rune.
That was a great area for that puzzle.
Yeah,
it was big enough to where you could get some distance, but it was not big enough so that you could completely ignore him.
Yeah, John played through this part, which I thought would have been too scary for him, but
Just getting chased. I'm just scared of the dark, dude. If
so
it's
just
light,
being chased
anything
doesn't bother you?
No.
Being chased is more scary to me than darkness.
No, for me, if it's light
Because my
out,
heart rate
it doesn't
like
matter. I'm just scared of dark stuff.
I just love that feeling of like, oh, come on, get the last one, get to the door before it gets like, oh, phew.
I went around that house like 7-8 times though. I kept missing stuff. I kept missing the rune, and then like the 3rd rune, and then I'd have to like go all the way around and miss it again.
Well, that's what makes it fun, because if it just was a regular rune puzzle and you're just like, well, let me just walk around until I find the pattern, but adding in like the beast chasing you, now it's like, shit, I can't think clearly. Like, was I here already? Was I not here already? Where do I go? It's just fun, I think.
That's what I was kind of getting at is they keep iterating on it. They change it up every time in a meaningful way, so that it's not as repetitive as I gotta go find this thing again.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say it was lazy. Like that's not what I meant. Like you're right. Like they do keep adding wrinkles to it.
And I also think that if the whole game was just combat, it wouldn't have been as good as a game that you have a combat section, puzzle section, story. It keeps on switching it up on you. Where if I think the whole game was just combat and story, it wouldn't have been as impactful.
Right. If it was all combat, then it would have taken away from the sections of combat that you did have.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the puzzle overall is a net positive, even though you can already know how to solve something, and it gets a little boring because you're like, I know how to solve this already. I just need to go stand in the right spot and look at the right angle. But anyway, my next topic here is thoughts on the rot. And we kind of already touched on this. Where
Bullshit.
How did you find
Bullshit.
out
I was deceived.
that the rot would never get to your head?
I didn't know until Gradle told me.
How did you know?
Because no, I didn't die much. I died 3 times. I got worried about it, so I googled it.
What?
I cheated myself.
So.
Yeah, because I was worried because I died like probably 3 or 4 times on that first fire puzzle, and I was like, shit, it's already up to my shoulder. I need to be really careful.
Yeah, I thought it added threat to the game, and I didn't know about that, so I'm glad I never looked it up. But
There is no
Spoiled it
permadeath
for
in
yourself.
Hellblade. Sorry, guys.
but I thought, like, in my first playthrough especially, I died a lot because I would do things like experiment with the dark area, try to run different ways and die. I died a lot on the fire puzzles because I wouldn't always know the right way to go.
Yeah, I died a couple times.
Just getting used to the combat, I died a couple of times, right? So by the end of the game, I was like, oh shit, I cannot die. I don't want to restart. So I thought it adds to that pressure. It adds to the feeling, of like, I'm against all odds gonna make it through this.
Yeah, well, I had anxiety about it, so I needed that
I
calm.
did die in like the sea of corpses.
I wasn't even that
I was
high. I was like up to here, and I was already stressing out about it.
I was like, shit, am I gonna have to restart the game?
Yeah.
Because I'm in combat and I just kept fucking up because I'm sweating now. And I'm like, fuck, I died. Please don't tell me I have to restart. And then it like put me back to my last checkpoint. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, I thought about this. Like, if I would have died enough times to where the game like said game over and I had to restart, I would be here talking to you guys about how I didn't beat the game. And
Yeah.
Got to this point and then watched a walkthrough or a playthrough for the rest of it. Like, because I wouldn't restart it.
Yeah.
I'm not about that.
Oh man. So don't pick Sifu.
You pick Sifu. Sifu, is it dark in Sifu?
No,
Oh,
but it has the permadeath. Like
Restart.
you restart every time.
See, but like I would consider like a game where
Deathloop.
you die and it like is game over and you have to restart. I would consider my experience, if I didn't want to restart and then I just watched a playthrough on how it ended, I would consider my experience with that game complete. Maybe I never beat it, but it's not on my backlog. I check it off.
Really? I wouldn't. I don't
I
think
don't need
watching
to
a
beat everything, man.
I would
think
consider
watching a playthrough counts as beating it.
Yeah, I can
No, I
understand.
don't. I'm saying my experience with it would be complete. I wouldn't say I beat it.
Yeah, I could see doing that, but I'd be like, okay, I'm dropping this game. I'm not gonna fucking redo all this stuff because only if I didn't like it enough.
So the black rat, the reason it never kills you is because it doesn't actually exist.
No, it does exist. It just never.
I thought the black
It exists in a mind.
Yeah,
Right.
it exists.
so it can't kill her because it's
Right.
not real.
If we're talking deep.
There's symbolism in this game.
What?
So my next point on here is the cinematic cutscenes. We already touched on it ad nauseum, I think. They're beautiful. They're amazing. Some of the best scenes in all video games, I believe. Did you guys have any scenes you liked in particular? I like the one where she cauterizes her wound on her face with her broken sword.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
That was powerful. I like the cutscene of Hela coming out and being huge, larger than life.
That was scary.
John wrote in his notes, Hela's a baby.
Like, with a question mark, like, hell's a baby?
But she's
A
just
big
a
baby.
giant bald woman. And what are
But
you
she
know,
is Hella.
some of the other scenes that added cutscene for getting all the collectibles? Do you guys want to know what it is?
Yes, I was gonna look it up, but I never did.
So it's basically Druth comes in and he tells you that he thought he could go to the Norsemen and try to get them to change their ways, but under torture and under slavery, he didn't act how he thought he would. He, crumpled, and that, he under torture gave them the locations of some of the villages, right? And then he said, but it wasn't just him. There was another person in all black that gave up Senua's village for free passage. And he says sometimes the betrayal comes from those closest to us. So it's implied, who else is in all black? Zenbil, the darkness, your father. So your father went to the Northmen while you were out in the wilds and told them where your village was so they could get more plunder, get more slaves.
Yeah.
Blood equal Dillion. So Dillion's death, as well as a lot of your mental problems, are depend on Zenbel, your father.
So was the plague an actual thing? So the plague did kill Dillion's father. So that was an actual plague,
Yeah.
not the Northmen.
The plague.
Okay.
The plague killed them, and the people who were scared, they blamed the plague on Senua because
Right.
they didn't understand the illness. They didn't really understood the gods and curses, and it's a part of their culture. Somebody who was cursed by the gods would be sent into the wilderness to confront their demons, so to speak. They're called what, John? Gelts? I think Gelts.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And so that was what Senua was doing when she went into the wilderness.
And then she came back.
And she came back and Dillion was blood-eagled,
Yes.
which was your father's fault, along with your mother's death at the hands of your father. Your mother also had mental illness.
Yes.
The sight. I
We
think is
will-
what they call it. Or the curse.
Get more into it in the story part, but cutscenes, the final cutscene, powerful, impactful, coming to terms with Dillion being gone.
Yeah, that's where she kind of like wakes up. She's in hell at the end, and then she wakes up and she's back kind of on the shore, right?
No, she's
What's the
in the
final
top of the tower. She drops the skull, coming to the closure of his death.
Drops the skull into the ocean.
Yeah,
she's
she's
Hela,
Hela.
and she kills Senua, which symbolizes her
Yeah.
killing her old superstitious self.
Yeah.
What's the scene
She's
after that?
got closure. There is no scene after
That's an end.
I thought there was a scene where she's like back, and I kind of thought like, oh, so all that shit was just in her mind.
No, it was. She was back, but she was overlooking the ocean in this tower of
So she drops-
allegedly the Northmen, I'm assuming.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's where I was talking to Jay. Like, I was trying to figure out what was reality versus in her head. And it's like, okay, so she's killing all these Northmen, allegedly, to avenge Dillion. And she gets to the final Northman and kills them all, right? Like, she is the goddess of death. And it still doesn't bring her closure to Dillion's death until she actually lets go.
Let's
Of
go
that.
of her superstition, her old self,
And the
Her
fact that
doubt.
he's gone. Yeah, he's gone for good. There's no bringing him back. Yeah, there's no bringing him back, and killing all these people who killed him isn't gonna bring her closure.
It adds.
But it did, if you think about it. Well, she accepts it, I guess.
She accepts it. Yes.
Kills all those people and realizes that it
And
didn't.
it adds another wrinkle to it because some of the cutscenes are in the past, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell which ones are in the past because
Right.
she isn't wearing the war paint
Yes.
in those cutscenes. And I really like the one in the blindness trial where the darkness, your father Zembil is speaking to you, and she's like denying everything she says, and then Dillian is what guides you through the darkness, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Another memorable cutscene, I would say, is the Blood Eagle one. Obviously, impactful, really strong imagery there. Also, seeing her own mother burned at the stake, and that's where you find out that your father Zembil did this because he believed that she was listening to the voices of the underworld, and that she was cursed
Mm-hmm.
and had to
Senua also
burned at the stake. But before that, you didn't have the memory of this. You thought your mother committed suicide. So it all kind of comes together, and we'll get more into that in the story. So what are your thoughts on the difficulty? What difficulty did you guys play on?
Whatever the default was.
The default was adaptive.
I played on adaptive.
So
What's that mean?
it means if you're
Skills.
dying a lot, it'll get easier. If you're doing well, it'll get harder.
Oh, okay.
So I watched the speed run this morning. It surprised me they were playing on easy. So maybe that's why they could kill things in 2 hits.
Yes.
But I thought playing on adaptive difficulty felt really good, right?
It did. Yeah.
Yep.
It always felt like there was a challenge.
I think there should also. I didn't realize it was adaptive first. Like I didn't realize you got to select the difficulty, and maybe you didn't. Maybe you had to go
You had
into
to
the
go
screen.
into the
So yeah, I
house.
never even explored it. I was just like, okay, put me in. And I think that every game should have adaptive. I think that's a genius.
I think it's a good way to do it.
I've never heard of a game that adapts your difficulty based on how you're doing, and I think that is genius.
Some games, when you die a lot, will ask you if you want to turn.
Exactly, God of War.
Yeah.
God of War. You died 5 times in a row. You want to go to easy because you're on medium.
John and I yesterday.
You're on normal.
I was thinking, Dad, shut up.
John and I yesterday were playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, and we were playing on Veteran, and we went into the options, and there was only an option to lower the difficulty. There was not an option to bump
We were
it
on
up.
hard. Because if we're on veteran, then there
Oh
would
yeah,
be
we were on
no
hard,
option.
not Veteran. Yeah, we were not doing Veteran. We were struggling with Hardened.
We were on one part for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Is that the one where enemies just spawn infinitely?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that part we were stuck on for 3 hours.
It's so funny.
And you have to carry the guy in the ghillie suit. Yeah.
And he made you set him in the freaking middle of the open. So when you pick him up, you're just getting rained
And it
down.
takes 2 bullets to kill you. And there's infinite enemies.
Yeah. Good game design.
Yeah. It was fun though. We had a good
That
time.
was fun. We figured it out.
Yeah, you would just alternate carries, right?
So
When one person gets.
it doesn't support
no
offline co-op.
Oh,
So we had to just trade back and forth.
that's so funny.
Favorite scene we already talked about. Did you think the game was fun?
I think we're in consensus. Yeah.
I think it was
John?
a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Yes.
And I just want to say I would recommend a second playthrough to everyone. You
No.
beat it in a lot shorter amount of time. And it just going through, you feel like a trained badass.
Yes.
You know, even on adaptive difficulty. And I want to talk about our couch co-op experience, right? Because it's different than playing the game by yourself in a dark room,
Sure.
for sure.
My room wasn't
And-
dark. It was well lit. I was
And I think, you know, it adds a little bit of pressure when you're sitting beside your friend to perform. You know,
I know how that
John would
is.
keep getting hit as he was trying to kick people off the bridge, and he'd say, "Why am I doing so bad?" Right? And like, really, I don't care like if he gets hit or not, but it kind of subconsciously like I want to look like I'm good at video games in front of my friends.
I am good at video games.
And yeah, you are definitely better than me at COD. That's for sure. And probably a lot of games.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm the worst first-person shooter player of all time. I will own up to that.
and
Confirmed. But I will still play with you guys because that's what you guys like.
and
Until there's a different game that we can play together.
and I wonder if like that adaptive difficulty kind of played into that, whereas you had 3 hours experience with the game. I've beaten the game twice already. I would go in and not get hit, and then I'd hand off the controller to you, and it might have seemed a little bit harder to you, and maybe that's because the adaptive difficulty bumps it up.
I still never died.
I just think like the reason
Just
more
saying.
games don't have that is because that feature can't be easy to implement into a game to dynamically scale the difficulty.
Yeah.
I mean, I disagree, but I think that way when I look at concepts because I'm in IT, so I think behind the scenes of like what's going on in the background.
I think there's games like Dark Souls or Sekiro where the artistic vision is this is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And in games like those, I don't think it should be adaptive. Like, you're getting your ass beat, let's make the boss easier. I think that's a cop-out. I would not like that as a player. Like,
Right.
no, I want to overcome this challenge. I don't want to even make it easier for me because I'm dying a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the game, but I think the adaptive difficulty worked well in this one.
Well, yeah,
This
but that was the
game did
purpose
feel
that we talked about scope, right?
Like I think I might have died to the fire boss a couple times, but I mean, it didn't feel like easy fights.
Well, so that's the thing, right? Is like how they're doing it is it's going to be an up and down curve, right? Where if you're doing well, then it's going to make them a little harder, a little meatier to force you to play a little more strategically. But the minute you die, then it'll drop it back down to where you were. And so like you're going to be about at your play level the entire time. Is how they designed adaptive difficulty to be, which is just really cool. And it only fits in a game that is focused around an experience of playing it. Like you said, if you do it in a game like Dark Souls or any of the Soulsborne where it's designed to be like, learn this game or don't fucking play it, like, then yeah, that would be a cop-out.
Yeah, any game where the genre of games basically this game is hard.
Yeah.
Any game where it's designed to be a hard game, it makes no sense to be able to lower the difficulty.
Exactly. But in a game where it's like, I want you to experience the story
Right.
and the combat and the environment and all of these musical aspects, every aspect of the game, I want this to be an experience for the player. I think adaptive difficulty is genius. I didn't even realize they had it.
So
and I think that should be used in a lot of the games that are narrative driven in the future. I think
100%
that
agree.
So do you think
It's
that
amazing.
we'll see it in games that come out? Like, do you think like God of War Ragnarok? would be
well,
perfect
for all of the
adaptive
developers
difficulty?
listening to this podcast, yeah, I think so.
Well, like I'm just thinking about God of War because I replayed it recently, and it's like
Yeah.
okay, like that game would be perfect for adaptive difficulty.
Exactly.
So like I wonder, like, will
Well, they
Ragnarok
already
have it?
had, like we had just said, they already had an aspect of
but
it,
you
but
can't
they only
tell
had
me
a,
I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna say yes. Let's turn down the difficulty.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we've talked
but then
about
I won't get the
difficulty-
trophy for me. No.
We've talked about difficulty once before, and in that conversation, I said, I feel like I hate that games have multiple difficulties because I want to play in the vision of
The developer.
the developer,
Yeah.
right? I want to play, like, I love how Halo has, like, whatever difficulty it is, and they have the parenthesis, this is how the game is meant to be played. Like,
That's
that,
how-
But
lot
on
of
the
games do
flip,
it.
flip side, we talked offline about Pokemon. Game Freak, listen to this. There needs to be a difficulty because they baby those down. There needs to be like a scalable difficulty
sure,
to say
but they're
like.
making those games for
or
children.
Pokemon can just be an easy
But they're
game
making those
that
games for
adults
children.
don't need to play.
Exactly.
But adults want to play those
Exactly.
games.
It's calling this.
Because they played them when they were children.
Yes.
So
Your
just
fan
let
base
it
is
be.
I'm
But
never
what I'm
giving up
saying-
on
what I'm
Pokemon.
saying is
Put in
adaptive-
difficulty.
What I'm saying is adaptive difficulty is genius because it gives you that you don't have to think about what you're playing at. Oh, this is so easy. I wish it was harder. Oh, this is too hard. I wish it was easier. You just have exactly what you're supposed to be at.
What your
And
skill level
I
is.
don't know
Your
if-
skill level is.
Would it actually be that hard to implement? Because most of the difficulty in games is in combat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Most
to
games-
scale combat, all you do is scale health and damage.
No,
That's
that's
it.
the bad way to do difficulty. You just give enemies more health, make them do more damage, and you do less damage.
I agree. When you do
No,
it
it's-
as medium is 100 health, 100 damage. Hard is 200 health, 200 damage. But if it's scaled in increments of 10,
Yeah, it's very fine.
Right.
It depends on how finite you're going on that scale, right? You can have
Right.
incremental changes. Of,
like you don't want
Everything.
big
I like
ass
when they do difficulty.
increments.
How about
It's like
him?
there's more enemies that spawn. They are more aggressive, so you have to play.
Yeah,
I like
there's
when they
different
do
methods of
difficulty
doing
that, but just
but-
giving more health or making them do more damage to me. That just
Depends on the game.
Sure.
Depends on the
Yeah.
gameplay.
I agree. Like based on whatever game you would be doing, you do it in different ways. But I'm just saying, it seems like something that could be implemented more often than it is because this is the first time I've ever seen it.
And on the flip side of it, needs to be part of the scope of the game.
Right, it needs to be the right game.
It needs to be the right game. I don't think that they should do it for Persona or any strategy game, any turn-based strategy game. Like, you picked your difficulty because you know that that's what you're signing up for.
Are there difficulty options in XCOM?
Yes. I think so. I think there's an impossible mode. That's
Okay,
literally
there's
impossible.
like hard and then harder.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
the baby version of XCOM is still you're dying.
Yeah. So I mean that speaks to vision, artistic vision. XCOM people wanted to make it so that you lose soldiers, right?
Mhm.
That you will come into an impossible situation where you
Yeah.
will have to say goodbye to some of your best soldiers. And yeah,
Man,
it depends on the game.
XCOM. Those are some of the fondest memories of Jay for me. Just sitting in his
Give it to you.
yeah, XCOM, give it to you. He gonna give it to you. Just sitting in his loft, just like 5 of us around his little TV watching XCOM. It's like the best thing ever.
Those were good days.
All right, so let's get into the story now. Finally,
Okay.
so you're on a boat at the beginning, as John already alluded to. Voices are telling you what is she doing? Why is she going here? She's going to die here. She gets off the boat and she kicks the boat away, and she says, "There's nothing to go back to."
Mhm.
And this is the road to hell. So there's dead bodies everywhere. Again, you have your self-doubt, your self-criticism telling you,
Turn back.
turn back, you shouldn't be here.
You can't do this.
Yeah. And
What is she thinking?
and the point of the game is to overcome that and go forward regardless of what your voices are telling you. Which I'm sure, someone with mental illness going into a job interview, for instance, would have a similar experience. You're not qualified, you can't do this. Voices screaming at you that you're not good enough, basically.
Mhm.
And then you get to the gate to hell, right? There's a gate, you can't go through it until you go through these 2 other gates and defeat the 2 bosses. There's 2 options, Valraven or Suitor. I'm curious, which option did you do first?
I went through Suitor's Gate first.
Me too.
No, Raven.
Valraven is this big red symbol, and Suitor's got this like mellow yellow symbol. I didn't even see Suitor's door at first.
The reason I picked well, that's beside the point. But yeah,
They
The
tell
reason I
you
picked-
there's 2.
yes. But the reason I picked it, they do tell you, and the reason I picked Valraven was because I was unfamiliar with that, but I knew Cert, like from mythology. I was like, oh, that's gonna be a badass boss. Like, I want to do that one
Second.
next. Yeah.
There's like a
But-
cutscene that plays before the doors, right?
Yes, and it says the Master of Illusions Valreven and the Fire Giants. Or
That introduces like the dark rot to you too. In that
Yes,
cutscene,
that's you can't win that battle confrontation.
yeah.
yes,
You get downed, and that's
Instantly,
where the
pretty
rot
much,
is introduced to you. In the speed run, they tried to get hit as fast as possible to get down
That makes sense.
in that part. So, which order do we want to go since we're split?
I know. Do you want to flip a coin?
Let's just start with Valraven.
You can ask Alexa.
Because that's the way the speed run does it. They start with Valraven.
Okay. So the superior way is what John and I did.
That makes
Apparently.
sense.
So Valraven part, there were some of the more complex puzzles in the
Yes.
whole game are put here. You have to go through multiple vision gates to get to the spot where you need to be to line up the ravens.
Or to limit the ravens. That
Right.
was a cool aspect.
The
There's
last one.
too many of them at one
Yeah.
point. And when I was getting all the collectibles, the lore stones, there was a really difficult one where you have to go through a vision gate, open up a door, go back to the vision gate so it turns back the way it is, and then go up, and then there was a side area you go through. And that's one that I'm assuming 90% of people miss in the first
Yeah,
playthrough.
I missed 2 because again it was my first area, so I missed 2 in the first area.
I did too in my
And
first playthrough.
yeah.
I was trying to get them all, and I missed those.
You know what's funny? You said you didn't notice that the circle was filling up until like halfway through the game.
Yeah.
I was enjoying watching that circle fill up because I was like, okay, 30% through. We're doing this.
Yeah.
35%. We're
The countdown for
doing
you.
it. Yeah.
That's funny.
And Gradle, I misspoke. You don't have to do a full playthrough to get all the.
Yeah,
Like the
okay.
chapter
Yeah, I know
select.
you told me that earlier, but I was like, that doesn't really make sense because it's filling it with white. So I feel like you could do chapter select.
Yeah, you can. You can do it that way.
You drop it.
So I have 3 chapters I'll do at some point to get the secret ending you already spoiled for me and the superior population that is watching this.
What do you play on?
I played on PC, Xbox Game Pass, guys. You guys got me on it.
Yeah, that's what I
Xbox.
wanted to say at the end of the episode was, if you haven't tried this game, please give it a try. I think it's worth it, especially for $1. You can just jump on Xbox Game Pass.
That's
and
what I do.
try it out. And if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. But it's just $1 investment, and I think most people should try out this game.
I mean, mine just renewed, so
You're in.
I'm in. I gotta play at least one game a month on Xbox Game Pass.
It's very easy to do.
Yes,
You're gonna overtake me in gamer score.
I will on solitaire alone.
Solitaire.
I saw you guys
That
on
was
the
included.
solitaire.
That was like
Oh, no.
already downloaded on my computer for whatever reason. Like
Yeah, it's
it
on every
instantly
copy.
downloads. Yeah, I'm like, that's hilarious.
You
I'm
just
gonna
guessed
play it.
my next pick.
For my next pick, you guys need to play 20 hours of solitaire in the next 2 weeks.
So anyway, you do all these vision puzzles, and this is a kind of scary section of the game. I thought, the voices are kind of intense. You'll see Valraven, but then he's not there. It's just a totem. This is one of the scarier parts, I thought, and I thought since John made it through this part, he'd be good.
It's light out.
And
I don't care about that, man. I really don't.
and then
I did care about it.
you get to the boss fight. As we said, the music on it, I really dug, and I really liked this boss in particular. I thought it was stronger than the fire boss, for sure.
Oh yeah.
They
He
reused
would
it.
throw 2 blades at you. You could parry them both and shoot them back at him.
Yeah,
I
He
never
would
did that.
dive
I
at
did
you.
that. It was
You
so
could
cool.
parry
You could
his
parry it.
dive and throw him to the ground.
that
and
was
get
the best,
three-
did
most
do that.
satisfying one.
That's what I was
so
talking
good.
about.
Dive parry.
The animations and the combat were sick. Like they thought about the boss fights.
Oh, they thought about
Specifically-
every single possible. It's crazy. I don't understand how they developed the animations because we talked about the combat system already in depth, but like, yeah, the Valraven fight and every single boss fight was just like so fluid and so satisfying.
They encourage parrying too, because like you said, the frames are generous on parrying,
Yes.
so it's like you just parry everything, and then you get sick shit like that against Valraven. So it's like they don't come out and tell you it, but they kind of suggest it, like, "Hey, parrying when you can is the way to go." And then look at this cool stuff. I never tried parrying his blades, but that'd be cool.
His projectiles there, you're like, ting, ting, and then they
Oh,
shoot
yeah.
back at him.
If the
So
parry
cool.
frames were not as generous, I would never do them. I would dodge the entire time.
Did you have to parry twice
that's
when
what I
you
hate
set
about
the
the
two
games.
blades?
Yeah.
The parry.
Yeah. Right back to back.
Because I only parried one of the two. I never parried both in the same attack.
Yeah, it's tighter to get them both. But
Yeah, it's tight.
It's tight, bro.
I thought it was a really strong boss fight. I thought the game really came into full swing here. Any other things you want to talk about Raven?
I love the puzzles here.
Yeah.
Looking through the gates to kind of see like, now it's here, now it's not, and then you said you got stuck on. We're like,
The first one, because I didn't understand the portal.
Yeah, insane.
Once I understood the portal, like,
Yeah, it's
the puzzles became
easier.
Obviously, they're easier once I figured out how they worked.
same. Like I like.
that
I
was
saw
like
it, I
the
was
thing with like. So Druth is like talking to you about both these guys, and like Valraven is like a.
Well, I remembered that if you do Valraven first, is Druth there yet?
Mhm.
Yes. Because I thought you meet Druth in the Suture part.
You do, but he still talks to you.
Oh.
But you still see them.
Well, he explains that he's like a master of illusion, and then he kind of talks about like, oh, look through the gate, and then you see like, oh, shit changes when I look through the gate. So it just kind of added to his mystery, and then I swear, man, when you were in that part, you could see where he was, so I knew where I had to get up. So I just would go look like, okay, where's a gate? Look through the gate. Okay, what changed? Oh, okay.
It is cool, like being standing behind the gate, looking, and then going to
Yeah,
the side.
going inside
like,
of it,
should
seeing
I go
what's different.
through
Yeah,
this?
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah,
You did.
I should.
I love the puzzle. Like I loved his puzzles, and I love Suter's puzzles.
Yes, and those were the majority of the like puzzle mechanics that they taught you in the beginning.
Like
Besides the runes, but then it was just like runes and fragmentation. The rest of the game, pretty much light puzzles.
There was
Lightning
vision gates in a
darkness,
couple
yeah.
spots later on.
Yeah, but it was good.
Um,
I think that they were two good intro sections, and yeah, that's all I got.
and
on
then you
that
beat
one.
them, and then you walk all the way back, and then
Yeah.
the world's visibly brighter. You know, it's not as scary. It's kind of like a nice, peaceful walk back
Yeah,
to the gate of hell.
to the
that's why it's a cozy game, right?
Yeah. And I think on your way back from Valraven is the first time you see your mother.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So that's introduced to. She's live action overlaid over like a monument or something.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you get back to the gate of hell, and they
Is there
do
something for getting all of those, by the way?
all of what?
The mother segments?
I think you have to get all of those.
I don't think
No.
that any are optional.
The one's optional, I'm pretty sure that you go in the gate of hell, then you gotta like go side beam to the back of the building. There's probably a few hidden ones.
I
Like
don't know. I never
Your
tried
deal
those.
found something. that
Jade
you don't
got
know,
all
that
the
Jade doesn't know.
achievements.
yeah,
about.
Great.
exactly.
Jay got all the achievements, so if there are hidden ones, they're not part of an achievement.
Well, then it doesn't matter. That's what I was asking.
So
Thank
then-
you for clarifying. I will never look for all the mother things again.
So you get back, and there's another gate to go through, the one you didn't choose the first time. Then you go do the other one. We're talking about Sutir now.
Sutir.
So these change up the puzzles dramatically. Instead of lining things up, you go to an altar, look at it, and then everything's on fire.
Yeah.
And you gotta run your way back. And there's even a couple battle sections when everything's on fire.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, and it's like it's a timed puzzle too. You only have so long to get through the gate
Yes.
once you light everything on fire.
Yeah.
So like I said earlier, like I didn't know how to sprint because I did this area first, and I'm just trying to walk from the gate for the very first one, and it's like, man, I'm not even close. I do that 3 times, and I'm like, man, the rod is up to my shoulder.
You walked all the way from like the beginning section to like
Yeah, I know.
Hell's Gate.
That was the
Yeah.
first thing I tried to find was the
Isn't
sprint
that the
buttons.
first thing anyone does in any video game? Figure out what the sprint button is.
I thought like, okay, left. Like same thing happened to me in Sekiro. I did my whole first playthrough not knowing how to sprint.
You played the entire game without sprinting.
Because I like, okay, click left stick. That's how you sprint. And like most games I play, and it's like in Sekiro you hold B if you're playing on Xbox or circle on PlayStation. And in this game it's left, it's L1 or
Yeah, it's the
Left
same as the
button.
rest of us.
What I love is like in Hellblade, you press pause,
And
and there's only like 10 buttons.
well, I
So
ignored
they're
it.
all right there.
So then after dying 3 times or 4 times on this puzzle,
Oh.
then I'm like, oh, sprint. It's on. So then I.
He likes to really experience an entire
It's like
a
the guy
masterpiece.
So yeah, I died, and then they got really intense, and then the enemies spawn, and you only have so much time. And I was worried on the later ones, like, shit, I gotta get to the gate.
Apparently, there's no adaptive difficulty for Paul.
Well, how could they scale the difficulty? Like,
You
give
get
more
more time to complete
To
the
walk
puzzle
there,
than walk
so-
the fire puzzle.
Yeah, so I died. Like, I think I died 3 times there, and then I died like 3 or 4 times in combat. So half my deaths were to this first fire puzzle.
Yeah. So the suit tier boss I thought was the easier of the two.
It was.
He just like stomps and you can basically just dodge sideways
Yeah.
and continuously hit him.
I thought the same
Still
thing too.
cool,
I was
though.
like, this was my second one, and the Valravn one was way more satisfying, and I was like, that was easy.
I think suit, like, I know in the speedruns you said they went to Valravn first, but I think Sutir was like the better one to start with.
I agree.
But you played a clip from like his boss fight. That music is just so intense,
Yeah.
and he's a cool boss. Like, I think Valravn is more challenging, but yeah, he stomps around and he's got like a big overhead attack that he winds up. Pretty easy to dodge, but I still liked it. He was a good like first boss for me.
Yeah, I think Suitor was a lot easier than Valravn, especially when Valravn, if you fought him first, was basically your second like combat of the game.
Yeah.
So like he's got a lot of different attacks. He's got a lot of special attacks that you're just not used to yet. So he was actually kind of difficult. I died on Valravn the first time I tried. I also forgot what the block button was, so I was just running at him, which pissed me off.
I died once, and then I was like, okay, I actually need to learn
Yeah,
his moveset because he
But,
had
like-
such diverse moves that I played very defensively against
Yeah.
Valravn.
I dodged everything in the first Valravn fight,
Yeah.
because I just wasn't confident in the combat
Yeah.
yet. So dodged everything, and then getting into Suitor was like compared to Valravn, I think very very easy.
And it's 2 different styles, right? They designed those bosses completely different because, yeah, you're playing more on the defense against Valravn because he's quicker, he's fast,
He's
he
ranged.
jumps all over the place, he disappears out of your line of view. So you're playing on the defense a lot more, whereas in Suitor, you're on the offense. Yeah, you're hacking him 6-7 times by the time he attacks you once. And
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really two different bosses completely, which I just realized as we're having this conversation.
I
Like,
just
that's a
love-
genius way to design. One's focused on offense, one's focused on defense, and that's the 2 ways that they're teaching you to play the game.
I still just love Suitor though, because that's where I got introduced to Druth. And like Senua has like flashbacks where she's talking to him, and he like promised he would help her, well, like get through the fire or something. It just made me care about Druth on this part.
Druth's a bad guy.
He ran through the fire to escape the Northmen, and they didn't follow him, but that proved deadly to him.
You know what's interesting is like a lot of media in the last like 5 years or so, the Vikings have been the heroes of, a lot of stories. I don't know if this is probably the first game I've played where they are, the enemy, they're depicted with like bone masks on and just like more beastly, which is like historically, I mean, they were gruesome. They raised entire villages and with a lot of
monasteries.
yeah,
They had no like weapons. Yeah.
yeah, and in a lot of our media from the last X amount of years where Vikings became popular, it's like celebrated almost, even though it's terrible deeds.
Yeah.
This is the first game that I've played, or first piece of media that I've watched in a little bit, where they are, grotesque, and their deeds are, like not shameful, kind of shameful. Like they're the bad guys. So that's interesting too.
Yep. So you beat Sutir, so then you make it back to the gate of hell. Finally. And this is where John decided it was too much to do alone.
Well, I mean, I decided I don't want to go into hell, which I think is a very reasonable take.
I thought I was about like halfway through the game at this point. I'm like, sweet, I'm gonna go into hell, I'm gonna fuck shit up, and I'm gonna be done.
Yeah, you're only 20% of the way.
Because I texted you, I'm like, oh yeah, I played for a couple hours. I'm about to go into hell.
Yeah. But John, you say you don't want to go into hell. Don't you want to save Dillian?
I thought you were going to say, John, you don't want to go into hell, but look at how you're living your life.
Yeah, John. Reevaluate your life decisions.
Okay, stay out of my life decisions, Paul.
But
You
don't
need
you?
Jesus.
Can we
Let's
maybe
not
close
go
that door? Yeah. Don't you want to save Dillian though?
Yes.
I want to talk about, like, really quick. So you're carrying around Dillian's head.
Yeah.
And, like, in God of War, like, spoiler for God of War, if you haven't played God of War.
I haven't played God of War.
Are you going to play God of War?
I want to, yeah. That's
Alright,
a
never
long
mind.
game. It's going to take me like 3 years to beat.
There's a head in... No, it's not. It's like 12, 15, 20... Well, for you, maybe. There's a head in God of War, too. That's all I'm going to say.
If it's 15 hours, then maybe 2 months. See, the issue is like trying to play other games while I always have a game to play so hard.
I keep taking us off the rails. I'm sorry.
Somebody should pick God of War. I want to play again.
I do, too. Well, I am.
Well, that's good.
I'm not picking it. I mean, I'm playing it on the
I
side.
know.
Which
But
one? The reboot?
Yeah.
2018 God of War. I'm playing on Give Me God of War. And I'm going to get all the collectibles this time.
Oh yeah, I got the platinum for that.
I want to platinum, man.
Yeah, I want to platinum.
We should pick it. Like, we'll play it. Like, what we should do is we should plan to play it, like, right before Ragnarok comes out.
bonus episode.
You know what's funny? It's like basically Gradil playing a PlayStation game means he platinumed it.
No,
Shadow?
You told me
I-
how many you
not
had.
Shadow. I only have 78.
I have
my
0
God.
platinum trophies.
I haven't played half that many games, period.
Get at me in the comments if you have platinum trophies. Flex on me, because I have 0.
All right,
I'm
back
flexing.
on the rails. So you open up the gate to hell, and there's a bridge there. You start walking across the bridge, and this is where we meet Hela, who John thought was a baby.
Explain why you thought she was a baby.
Big bald head coming at you, just big head.
I can see it now why you would think that. Your note is funny.
So she comes out and is coming towards you, and I thought, like, on my first playthrough, I thought, okay, we're about to have a boss fight, but instead Senua like backs down.
The voice is here.
She's not looking at Hela, even though it's coming closer and closer to her, and yeah, the voices get really intense here, and like you're gonna die. Like, what are you doing?
It's terrifying. This was probably the second scariest part of the game for me because I felt powerless.
Yeah. And so she screams at you. Your sword breaks, and you get knocked off the bridge to hell. And you get cut up on your face, and it goes through this dark cutscene where the shadow's talking, and she's holding up the mirror, and you realize the voice of the shadow is her talking.
Mm-hmm.
So that voice is also in her head. and it has some pretty powerful imagery with her, the shadow telling her to, like, what are you doing? Are you going to get up and fight? Or are you going to give up, basically? And she takes the red hot sword, broken sword, and presses it to her face to cauterize the wound, I'm assuming. So I thought, what are your guys' thoughts on this story beat, this cutscene?
It was interesting because when I first saw her put the sword to her face, I thought the exact opposite, and I was confused when she continued because I thought she was like gonna commit suicide, like she was giving up, which was just me completely missing what was happening.
The point.
So I was confused until we had this conversation, because I was like, I don't understand that part at all. So this shed some light on that for me for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome to get the first glimpse into like the voices coming through her, because that was like the only moment where it's like this dark, grotesque voice of her father, like matching what she's saying.
Her mouth movements.
Mm-hmm.
So Zimbel, the darkness, says something to the effect of, "Go ahead, feel sorry for yourself."
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like it's kind of like putting her down and uplifting her at the same time. It's like, are you going to give up, or are you going to continue on? This is a minor setback. You got knocked off the bridge by Hela, but do you want Dillion back or not? And that's where she gets the courage to cauterize the wound and continue on with her quest.
It's interesting that it's her father's voice that's like going both ways, because you'd think it would just be tearing her down,
So,
Well, it kind of was tearing her down. It's like,
yeah.
go ahead and feel sorry for
But
yourself.
she wants to defy that, so she gets the strength to continue.
Right.
And
He's like, he's basically saying, you're too weak. You go ahead and feel sorry for yourself. You're not gonna be able to save Dillion anyway.
At what point did you know that it was Zimbel? Because, like I said earlier, I never put it together that the darkness voice was Zimbel.
Well, I thought they were all the same person, so it made it easy for me.
Yeah, like, when did you figure it out that, oh, that's her dad?
It's in the pit.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
they say something in the pit that says like the darkness was created by her father or something like that.
Gotcha.
So, after that scene, you end up on Shipwreck Shore, where you're following a light, which is a hallucination of Dillion.
Yep.
And it leads you all the way to this tree. And then we already talked a lot about this cutscene. This is my favorite cutscene ever, where it flashes back to her meeting Dillion and how he was like, "How'd you learn to fight like that?" And she says, "I was watching you." He was like, "You learned all of that just by watching me?" And it kind of, going back to the mental health part, like, there's all these downsides to mental illness, but they pick up on a lot of things that people without mental illness might not pick up on. They watch things closer sometimes, or they see patterns and shapes where other people might not see those patterns. So, and it's kind of strange referring to Hellblade as a love story, but it is kind of that. And this is like a really heartwarming scene, I thought, where you see Senua vulnerable, broken down over all these years, kept in a room, isolated by her father, finally having that human interaction with somebody who's good, who is a light, metaphorically, to her. The light that you're following, leading you to become a better warrior, to deal with your issues, to break away from this superstitious way of thought. What are your thoughts on that cutscene? Or did I sum it up?
I want to elaborate on kind of what you were saying about how she just, like, people with mental illnesses kind of see the world differently. Do you know who Temple Grandin is? She was this person. Well, I don't know if she's still alive, but she has Asperger's syndrome. So she's high functioning autism, and like doesn't interact with people normally. Like doesn't like human contact. She made like a hug box for herself because she wanted to like hug people, but she didn't like contact. So she made this machine that basically like hugs her. And she grew up on a cattle farm, and like she helped revolutionize like the slaughterhouses, like how to get cows into the slaughterhouse because they don't want to go. They just kind of like push them through it. But she made this system where it's like makes it more comfortable for them, so they go through this like gate system to the slaughterhouse, and it just makes them feel more calm before they're like killed. But it's more humane. They're not like afraid because of the system that she designed because it's kind of how she felt. So she really liked it a lot for like the slaughterhouses that you and me, like as people who don't have issues with that would understand. So it's just, I think this game just does a good job of showing like, here's how people who see the world differently think about stuff like that. But anyways,
Any other comments from you two? No.
Okay.
And then you go in and you try to grab the sword that's embedded in the tree, and Druth tells you, this sword was forged by the gods. It can kill gods, but it's broken into fragments. And this is where you go through the trials of Odin, where you have to go through the 4 trials to reforge the sword, piece the sword back together by completing these trials.
Yeah, to prove that you're worthy to Odin, you have to pass his trials.
So let's talk about, it might not have been the first trial for all of us, but for discussion's sake, the first trial, the trial of the labyrinth. So in this one, you spawn in on a shore, and you enter like this, I don't know if it's a cave or a cavern, or it's like a man-made structure underground.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pitch black, and you have a torch. And as you're going, you light the torches on your way, and the labyrinth obviously doesn't make sense because you'll start to going and rooms will repeat. And the only way to tell if you've been to a room before or not is if you light the torch in there. So if you go and you have 2 different ways, a repeat would be where there's light coming from there. I haven't been to this room yet. It's dark. And that's kind of how you navigate your way eventually out of the labyrinth. There are 2 collectibles in this labyrinth where you have to intentionally go the wrong way, which those were 2 I missed in my first playthrough.
I got them both because I didn't realize you could light the lanterns.
So you're just going in the dark?
Oh yeah, I was going based on sound.
It resets you too at one point if you go the wrong way.
The voice, well, you'll come to dead ends.
Yeah.
Yep.
The voices tell you, light the lantern, don't they, John? You were there. I'm pretty sure they tell you.
They didn't tell me.
Well,
You told me.
I think you're right because I was lighting them as well as I went through. It's like, okay, there's light over there, then that way.
So it's kind of cool, and again, something you can do in games that would be harder to do in other mediums is, this reality bending. Keep going and the rooms repeat, where it might not make sense on an actual floor plan, but they can repeat things in games, and it's impressive really that they can load these without any kind of load screen or stutter on my end, at least. And while you're going through it, you hear a screaming voice, and it's kind of spooky. And then you get to the end of it, and it opens up into a cavern, and you eventually, I think this is where how does this one end, guys?
There's a red door.
There's a red door.
A red door?
Yeah.
And then you make it out of the labyrinth, and that's the first trial.
You talk to Odin, and then you get kicked out of the labyrinth.
Yep. No combat.
Yep. And then the next one is the Tower Shard Trial, which I kind of refer to as the puzzle trial, where you're going back and forth between past and present. You're trying to make it to Dillion. You've got 2 doors to open, and then you walk across this beam to Dillion, and he jumps off the bridge. And your voice is like, "You lost him. What are you doing?" What did you guys think about this trial?
Is that the one where it's like night and day?
Yes.
Yeah, it's past and present.
Yeah.
So when you look through the masks.
I liked it. So you had to like switch the perspective from you look through the mask and it's dark and now it's different. Yeah, like past and present, so you can kind of
It's more run down in the present.
yeah.
The past, it's like an actual building.
It's run down. It's dark. It's gloomy.
Yeah.
In the past,
Stormy.
It's bright,
Stormy.
Stormy. Past, it's bright. It's fully. It's not.
It's not
torn
scary.
down. It's not. Yeah, I liked it when it was the daytime a lot more. It was interesting in these trials where during these trials you're trying to get a new sword. Your sword is broken, and you are, at least for me, I was kind of. It's kind of eerie because if you do run into combat, which you don't know if there is going to be or not, you don't have a full sword. So it's like, am I going to be fighting with this, broken sword? So it gave you it kept a sense of suspense there, where I hope I don't run into combat, but if I do, what's it going to be?
Well, I think it kind of works into the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just beat 2 bosses. You're feeling powerful. Hela comes out and you can't face her, and she rips that power away from you. And so now you have to overcome these trials to regain your power because you've just been knocked down. You've been knocked back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the tower puzzle?
I do like how Dillion guides your way in these puzzles as well. You have Dillion, as we talked about him, as your metaphorical light or whatnot in your life, but in these trials, he's your physical light. He's literal. In the labyrinth, you're following what you think is his voice. You end up finding it's not his voice, but at first, at least, you're trying to follow Dillion's voice to get through the labyrinth. In this puzzle, you're trying to get to the light, which is Dillion. You realize that to beat this puzzle, everything you do is to get to this end point where you're going to meet Dillion at the end. Same thing goes for the trials that come forward or come after this. So I do like how Dillion becomes that literal light for you to regain your strength.
Mm-hmm. So the trial after this one is the swamp trial, where you're wading through the swamp. The narrator alludes to a time where they went to the beach or something, and nobody else could smell the rot, but Senua could. And the way I interpret that is like maybe that was the beginning of the plague.
Yeah.
Where Senua kind of sensed it coming, and nobody else believed her, and then they ended up blaming her for the plague.
Yeah. That's what I think it was.
Yeah. So you wade through the swamp. The vision gates are back. You have to complete a bridge by getting up a tower. That you can construct the tower by going through different vision gates. Mm-hmm. And then you get into the actual part of this trial, which to me it was probably the second scariest part of the game, where you're being chased through a labyrinth.
As I said, that was my favorite rune door, though.
Yeah, and you have to like speed look at these symbols.
Yeah. Oh, is it gonna register? Okay, I gotta go.
And John played through this part when we were doing the couch co-op. What did you think about being chased by fire, basically?
I got caught by it a couple times. And like Paul said earlier, I thought it was well done. The building becomes much bigger than it looks like from the outside, and ends up having a lot more rooms. You're running from this fire that's chasing you. You always got to keep
ducking under and going through chains.
and the rooms themselves are fractured, and you have to run through them
Yeah, like a
to
kaleidoscope.
create them. Yeah. So I thought it was well done. I thought, it gives you that sense of urgency. I didn't find this as scary as it did, I guess, but I thought the pace that you needed to, complete it was good, was well done.
It's interesting that to me the scariest thing in video games is being chased, and to you it's dark.
Yeah.
Like Outlast, it's scary when the guy's chasing me
Yeah.
and I have to hide somewhere.
Alien
That would
Isolation.
be terrifying to me as well. Just saying.
But
That's in the
this section in this game reminded me of that because I'm being chased and I have to find my way through here without being caught.
It's funny because we played Outlast at the fraternity house. We had big Outlast party where there's a lot of people in the room on a couple couches. One person, we're passing the controller around. I never took the controller because I can't play that game. But during the times when it was dark and we're looking through the camcorder and that's all we can see, I could barely look at it, right? I'm hiding behind a blanket. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not even playing and I can't even look at the screen. When you get outside and there's lamps or lights outside, I could watch that part. It's I find that when I'm scared of the dark, basically.
So
scared of what might be out there.
I don't know. Am I truly scared of the dark in real life or more so in video games? I don't know. When I'm out camping and you gotta take a leak and you walk 5 feet into the woods and it's pitch black in front of you, I don't like that. Yeah, I'm still a little scared of the dark.
Yeah, is something gonna come out and bite your dick off?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that could possibly happen.
So, any other thoughts on this trial, guys?
I think this was the strongest trial, and at the end of it, is that where the cutscene with with Dillian's father is?
I think so.
You're
Yeah.
getting so much
Where she-
background on these trials.
Yeah,
too.
exactly, of her life.
And then the lore markers here, it's all Druth telling you about Odin. And I
I
think
thought this was it Odin or Sigurd at this point?
Well-
Sigurd was the main area.
I like there's this lore marker where it talks about Odin and about how he's trying to accumulate knowledge, and he wants to know about death and he wants to visit hell, so he hangs himself from a tree and he's dead for a period of time, and he learns about death and about hell, and it's really cool, I think. And it's how he has a nickname in Norse mythology where it's he's the hanged god, because he hung himself to kill himself, to be dead for a while, because he just wanted the knowledge. So I just love Norse mythology, and this game just really clicked with me to kind of learn more about that, and the presentation of it all was just
Rest in peace.
chef's kiss.
But yeah,
I think in one of these trials too, they talk about going into the wilds, and she tells Dillian she has to leave to deal with her darkness. And he's saying don't go.
He makes
for
her
a reason.
he makes her promise that she'll come back.
Yeah.
And she'll see him again. And that's what's driving her to do all this. She promised him that she would come back and see him again.
Yeah, and I liked how at the end of this trial that we're talking about, it's like I said, the dad dies, the chieftain dies, and Dillian becomes the new chief. And it's in that scene where he's blaming her for the plague, but then later on you come to when he's the light, is I never said any of those things.
Yeah.
And it's it really is that is so powerful, but also relatable, because a lot of times I find myself doing it. Everyone finds themselves doing it. You hear stuff that wasn't actually said. It's your perception of fights, and like how your mind like warps arguments into like
being the worst possible.
Yeah, exactly. Like this person doesn't believe in me and doesn't actually like love me, hates me because I killed their father. It's like, no, he never said any of those things.
It's just like your own self-loathing. Like,
Right.
You tell yourself those things like, oh, he hates me. This is my fault. Like, start to believe like what the other, because everybody else in her village blamed her for the plague, and she just.
And Dillian's like reassuring it. I never said any of those things. Like,
but that's how she felt. Like she felt like responsible for his father's death. Like it's just all what she tells herself. Her perception of reality.
Right.
Well, I mean, at the end too, like when she's confronting her father at the final fight, she says, "You created this darkness. You made them all believe that I was the one who was responsible for this. I believed you." So at that point, she did believe that. You know, and she had to go through this journey to figure out that no, that's not how it actually was.
She like remembers that cutscene with Dillian where he comes and says, "No, I never said any of that.
Yep.
I never blamed you." Part of her journey, I guess.
So on to the blindness trial.
So we talked about the first three, so this is the fourth trial.
Yep, the fourth trial. So
this was my first trial.
You did this one first, really? Wow.
I like zigzagged the tries. It was like I want to do this one and then that one.
Yeah, this was my second or third.
This is the last one for me on every playthrough. So this one, I thought I knew John would have trouble getting through this one, but I thought, John, if you could just hold out for the 30 minutes or whatever it is, the rest of the game you can handle. And in this trial, you have your sight taken away, basically. You can see vague outlines of shapes, but mostly it's pitch black. And you have to go, and this really speaks to the sound design, that you can navigate this based purely off sound. You hear water running, and Dillian says, "Go towards the river," and you're able to navigate to the river. He says, "Go upstream," and you're able to tell which way's upstream.
Oh, it's controller vibration too for like
Yeah.
So like that's what I was thinking of, like how could you play this on mouse and keyboard?
I tried to do that. Like I'm like, okay, I can close my eyes and really get immersed, and I can just if it's vibrating, I'm going the right way. So I did that for a little bit.
Yeah, and then you enter this building and you hear a monster in it, and Senua's like, "There's someone else in here," and Dillian says, "Can you see it?" And she says, "No, they can't see you." He says, "Well, then it can't see you." And so my first two playthroughs, because I forgot on my second playthrough, I got stuck in this room for a while because you don't want to go towards the monster, but turns out the only way out is
Past it.
to go past it. So it's kind of like confronting your inner monsters to get past it, to escape, right?
Yep.
So, and then once you're outside of there, there's these swinging braziers, and you can vaguely see them, and you can vaguely see the outline of these amorphous, gross-looking monsters.
Yeah.
But purely, you still have to go off of sound because you can't see that far. So a lot of the time, unless the monster's right by the fire, if you just walk without paying attention to the sound, you're going to walk into one. So you kind of have to time it with the way they're walking to get around a number of them till you get to the next building. In the next building, there's a beam with the monsters underneath, and you have to walk across the beam.
And you're scared of heights. I don't know if that's been mentioned previously, but every beam is
Yeah. And
balance.
then you jump down into a well, and then there's the cutscene with her father, or the darkness, where he's really bringing her down. What are your guys' thoughts on this trial?
I liked it. It was good.
It was so
well
unique.
designed.
It's like so unique, this trial, like not being able to see anything and just trying that feeling of like anxiety and suspense, like, oh fuck, I don't know exactly where they are. I'm just gonna go forward.
The monsters sound really scary.
Yeah.
Especially on headphones. And yeah, I thought this was the scariest part of the game.
Just kind of like, I hope I'm going the right way, because I don't really know at this point if I'm going the right way. I hope so. I hope I don't run into a monster and die. It was intense, heart pounding the whole time.
Anything else? Nope. So then you finish this trial and you pull the sword out from the tree. And after that, you enter. The tree closes up and you enter the Sea of Corpses. So I thought this was a visually really cool section. There were some good fights in here, I thought. And you just get this more powerful sword. And John said it. He's like, it's like I'm wielding a lightsaber. You become more powerful. It takes less hits to kill the enemies. And
the music here, when you're moving through the Sea of Corpses, like you just start to feel powerful. You're going down a path. There's like a wall of corpses with arms reaching out at you. There's enemies that spawn in front of you, and now you have this powerful weapon. Like you've taken your power back.
Yeah, I think it feels good. This part, these fights, and you're wading through the Sea of Corpses.
Yeah.
John, do you have any thoughts?
Not really. I liked feeling powerful again. I liked how the sword looked. Like, it's lit up. It's really cool looking.
It's
when
like
you're in these
blue
fights. I think at this point they ramp up how many enemies you're fighting at a time, which feels really good when you're dodging through 4 or 5 enemies at once. And
Parry.
Yeah, there's a good variety here too, because you've got some basic enemies. You've got like the big boys who have like more powerful attacks that you have to dodge. Feels really good.
Axe guys that can throw axes at you and jump in and out, and they have like a smoke screen.
Yeah, like the berserker type enemies.
The shield guys, yeah, it kind of throws it all at you, and with your new sword, you're able to overcome it.
Is there a way? I just have a question. Is there a way to guard break the shield enemies?
You
Yeah,
circle more. Yeah.
I never did that.
Yeah.
So I
it's
always
so
just got behind
funny,
them.
dude, because I was playing like there were a few shield guys in the main area before Hell's Gate, right? And there's 2 of them, I think, right? And I see Jay fight one of them on the bridge, and he's running and breaking their shield and doing combos and taking them out in one combo. I'm like, let me show you how I did it. And basically how I did it was, because I didn't realize you could break the shield. I tried kicking them and it didn't feel like it worked. All I would do was dodge left and quick attack once and just go in a
Get
circle.
behind them.
Yeah, just go in a circle for like 5 minutes until they were finally dead. He's like, dude, just break their shield.
I did that too because I didn't realize you could like kick and then it'd break their guard and then you could hit them with like a heavier combo. I just ran behind him like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I it's funny because you can't charge them. I actually have a video clip that I want to share with you later. But yeah, one of them, I realized if you try like the running attack at them, they'll flip you over them
Really?
and it puts you on your ass.
You can run and press B and you'll drop kick them and they'll get knocked back.
Yeah, but if you do the like just quick attack run, like I ran and stabbed a bunch of enemies to like guard break them normally, but the shield guys will like pick you up and flip them over you.
Yeah, and the way I was doing it was really limiting because I felt like every time I was fighting a group of enemies, I'd always have to single out the shield guy. I'd take everyone else out and then I'd
do
just
them
slowly
last.
take out the shield. So like
Yeah.
realizing that you could break their guard made it so that combat was a lot more fluid and you could just focus on the enemy that was in front of you.
I would also always deal with them last. If you parry them, it like stuns them, and then I would kill them that way too sometimes.
Okay, so we talked to her mom at the top of the mountain in the Sea of Corpses. You have to like walk over an arm to get to her. It's pretty cool, cinematic. You're up high. John likes that.
I do.
And then you go into the pit. So, what are you guys' thoughts on the pit, the darkness, fighting the dog at the bottom?
Well, you go down because you drop Dillian's head, right?
Yeah.
So this was, like I said earlier, this is my favorite area of the game just because you go down this pit and it's really fucking dark. But there's these random braziers or lights that illuminate an area, and there's a monster down there, the darkness tells you, and it won't attack in the light, and like the darkness is like, oh, you know, your light's not gonna save you forever. So there's this sense of urgency of like, fuck, I gotta sprint to the next lit area so that this thing doesn't get me. And then there's like music as you're running because you're just sprinting, and it kind of switches like the camera, so it's like behind you, and
It's
just
like
a sense of
flashes.
yeah, the sense of terror of like, fuck, I gotta make it. Oh, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. And then you get there, it's like, oh, sigh of relief. And then it's like, all right, where's the next lit area that I need to run to?
Right. So you solve a couple puzzles, find the runes. There's a couple fighting sections here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get through the door. And then this is where you drop the head.
Yeah.
To the pit. So, again, you descend into the pit. You have to solve some puzzles pertaining to staying in the light to keep away from the darkness. And then you finally get to the bottom and you fight this boss that's kind of like a giant dog creature.
Fenrir,
which we assume is symbolic for her, confronting her father. As they continually say throughout the game, the hardest battles are fought in the mind. So it's hard to tell which are real and which aren't. But this boss fight was pretty cool. He would hide in the shadows. And jump out. You had to go based on hearing and controller vibration. He would spew darkness, and you'd have to focus to be able to see him again.
Yep.
This was my favorite boss fight just because he's big and it's just this giant beast type enemy. And I think this was the boss fight that lasted the longest for me because he seems to have a lot of health. And like you said, like you've got focus to be able to hit him again. And you're using all of the mechanics, all of the combat mechanics that you've learned throughout the game here to beat him. And like, I don't know, I had like low health at the end of this fight, and it was just like, oh man, am I gonna beat him? Am I not gonna beat him? And it was just like a big like triumph moment when I finally killed him.
Yeah, and it's funny because we mentioned how powerful this sword makes you feel, but even the sword can't hit him in the beginning, right? Like, I started trying to attack him right away, and the sword would just bounce off.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, even this all-powerful Godslayer sword is bouncing off this
you gotta parry,
demon.
You gotta get to the side of him.
Yep.
So, I think it was a really strong boss fight too. I thought it was difficult,
Yeah.
I died a couple times on my playthrough. John died once. And then after it, this is where you get the revelation that, darkness was your father the whole time, and now that you confronted him, you don't have to worry about the darkness. You've overcome your past with him keeping you isolated, feeding you all these superstitious stories about how she's the cause for every calamity and how she has the underworld talking to her as the voices she hears, etc. So finally, after you beat him, it's kind of a cutscene of you climbing up, so you don't have to climb up yourself. And you get to this bridge again, and you have to solve a couple puzzles, do a couple combats to even form the bridge, and then you cross it. John kicked everybody off the edge.
I kicked every single enemy on that bridge off that.
Every single
that you
enemy.
can't kick.
I will make one
Is that how you-
note, one comment before this, and it's my only note that I made in the entire game, was you cross the beam before the bridge, and you cross it without stumbling or anything. You cross it normally. So like that was the most powerful moment for me, that I realized like every single beam up until this point, you're swaying, trying to keep your balance, terrified of heights. This one you can go back and forth as many times as you want without stumbling, and like that's like the first moment where she's finally like overcome her fears and is getting ready for the final track.
Yeah.
So like that was something that stood out to me, was that particular beam. Shout out to that beam.
Shout out to the beam.
That they put that in there for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys fall off a beam
I was gonna ask
at any
that too.
point? I did a couple times.
Did anybody fall off a beam?
I didn't, but I didn't fall off that beam because I couldn't, even if I tried.
So you get to the Hella's Sanctum finally. There's this big hallway at the end. There's kind of like a mirror type thing, and you have the circle of all the runes. And then if you have found all the lore stones, this is where you get that bonus cutscene where Drew tells you that your father sold out your tribe, basically.
Yeah.
And then you enter. Your voices are telling you, don't go that way. We don't want to die. Don't leave us behind. You know, and if you die, we're gonna die. So you're gonna die if you go this way. And she's like, I have to. I've got nothing else to live for. So she goes through the mirror. Well, actually, her in the form of her voices come out of the mirror, and then they turn, and then she leaves them behind. You know, big symbology there. And then you enter Hella's Sanctum, and all the voices are gone except for your father's voice. And that's where you're telling him that basically he's full of shit. Everything he told her was a lie, and that, you know, she is capable and she can do it, because you left behind your self-doubt and your self-criticism.
I thought it was interesting that her father's voice was the only voice that existed, because her father physically is dead, and her father she's just overcome her father in the form of that dog. So now it still exists because her hearing his voice and all of these voices still is a symptom of her mental health, right?
Yep.
But now has a completely different
Worldview
and a different way of interacting with this voice. So I thought that was powerful in this moment.
Yeah, and the music in this section, oh my god, so good.
So good.
You're running towards Hella, and like the music's swelling, and then you're fighting these huge hordes of enemies.
Yep.
And then you get to the final platform where Hella is. She shrinks.
There's
to
a
be
boss gauntlet. You fight like
human
all of
size.
the like
Yeah,
you fight the dog.
that's where
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
And-
this one.
and so you fight these characters that are shifting forms, right, between the bosses you've already fought.
Yes.
And at some point, even two of them show up at once, and you're so powerful and so capable at that point that you can take two bosses at once, and it doesn't even phase you.
Yeah, you're getting right back up and going
I
right back
love
into
that.
it. Yeah.
Just now you're fighting these bosses that you fought before, and it's just like, I'm so powerful. I don't have the self doubt anymore. I'm just taking two on at once, just wrecking them.
Yeah, and then on Hella's platform there, you have the endless waves of enemies that you can fight to your heart's content until they finally surround you and get you.
And the voices are so when I got to this part, I fought the horde with Hella in the center probably for 20 or 30 minutes, and like the voices the whole time are like telling you just let
Just
go,
give up.
just give up.
You've done enough. Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, it's okay. I got like, okay, I probabably just need to like let them get me down, But I'm like, what if there's a secret ending or something if you fight them long enough? And then eventually I'm like, all right, I'm giving up.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like your self-doubt voice, it's a different voice.
Yeah.
You know, saying,
Yeah, it's almost calming.
you've done enough.
Yeah.
It's time to let go.
Yep.
Which is, again, symbolism of her letting go of her
yeah.
fight, of her quest
Yep.
to save Dillian.
Hmm.
So then Hella's just kind of looking at her. She picks up her sword, and Senua basically says, I'll do anything to get Dillian back. You know, take my soul. I'll fight for you at Ragnarok. Just take my soul, kill me, as long as you give Dillian back. And Hela just looks at her silently, and Senua says, if you're not willing to do that, then you have to kill me, because I have nothing left to live for. And Hela picks up Senua by the throat and stabs her through the heart. And then she lays on the ground and dies. And there's a cutscene, Dillian laying on the other side of the ground. And I forget exactly what he says, but he says basically, death is really important, because without it, you have nothing to lose. And it makes the relationships you have and the life that you live more meaningful, because there is a death. And then it enters the final cutscene where you see Senua dead on the ground. You're at the top of the mountain, or the structure, and Hela picks up the head and walks to the edge and drops the head into the water. The camera pans back up, and it's not Hela anymore, it's Senua. Big realization, that was Senua killing her old self, her superstitious self, her self-doubting self to move on with her life.
Yeah.
It's her giving up her quest to save Dillian and to move on.
But she's still covered in blood and
Yeah.
scratch.
Which leads us to believe that
cuts.
she just massacred a lot of Vikings. She's badass. And she says something along the lines of, this is where one story started and ended. Come with me and we'll start a new story. And it's very hopeful at the end. It has that uplifting credits music.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you can't help but to applaud at your TV in a dark room alone. And masterpiece.
Yeah, it all just comes full circle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it all just kind of like, okay.
And the first time I played it, I didn't really understand all of it. So it left me thinking about the whole story for months, you know. And the more
Well, I
I thought
texted
about
you
it,
the first day. I was like, "Oh my god!" Like,
right, the more I thought about it, the more it all came together. The more it made sense. The more I liked the game and the story. So it has like that effect on me over time. Is that the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I like it. Anyway, any thoughts on the final cutscene?
I do want to just rehash just on her father's cutscenes during the final fight, like while you're traversing to the new like pillars where you do the big fights. He does say one thing, which is, if the darkness is not real, then your quest to save Dillian isn't real, right? And she has that realization. She's in this state where she is self-confident, where she's left out behind her self-doubt, where she's leaving behind the superstitions, and she realizes, which comes into play in the final cutscene. If I'm going to leave behind the superstition that I'm cursed, then I also have to leave behind this idea that I can bring Dillian back, and then it culminates.
I also don't think we mentioned before this final fight, there's the cutscene where you find out that your father burned your mother alive because she was also hearing the voices.
yeah,
And we talked about it earlier, but not right now. So, I guess let's move on. I think we talked about the story.
and she's got a lot of daddy issues.
That's the
You went
main
to,
point.
if your dad locked you in your house for your whole life, never let you out,
Yeah, so this game won a ton of awards at the BAFTA. Won best performer for Melissa Juergens playing Senua. Best British game, artistic achievement, audio achievement, Game Beyond Entertainment Award, Best Game Award, and it was nominated for Best Game, and nominated for Game Innovation, nominated for Best Music and Best Narrative, and then a bunch of other awards that I won't go into other than the game awards. It won Best Audio Design, Best Performance, and it won Games for Impact. It was nominated for Best Narrative and Best Independent Game.
What year did this come out?
2017.
Okay.
And so that's Hellblade. That's a wrap. Let's go through scores. I can start it off short and sweet. I love this game. I've talked about it enough. This game's a 10.
Okay, I can go next. I love this game too. I'm so glad I finally played it. I'm so glad.
Lying about
I'm so
it
glad
for
that
2 years.
the deception is over. So I played it. I love it. Like everything we've talked about, it has a scope. It just sets out to tell a story, and it's all killer, no filler. And the combat is great. The narrative is great. It's all interconnecting. Like there's so much. It's up to the story is in a way that like they give you so many pieces, the lore stones, the flashbacks. It's up to you to kind of connect it all together. And I agree. Like I need to go back and play this game again to kind of see more of the connections that like you've kind of talked about from your insight of playing it multiple times. And really like any complaint I have is just a nitpick. I think the only thing I would say is like some of the puzzles, kind of like the pacing of combat, story, puzzles. I think some of the puzzles kind of drag out a little bit and fuck with the flow of the game a little bit. But I think it's probably on me as a player more so than a design choice by them. So for me, it's a 10 out of 10 as well.
Yeah, I'll go. It was on my backlog for so long. I knew I would like it just because of the Viking thing. Gotta love Vikings. But yeah, it exceeded my expectations in every aspect. There's not a negative thing I could possibly say about this game, to be honest. It's beautiful. It's fun to play. It's got a great narrative. It's got everything that I could ever hope for in a game. So I will probably give out my only, but this is a 10 out of 10.
This game is not my cup of tea. It is a game that, for me to play independently, was very difficult. And I ended up not actually doing. It was uncomfortable. It was hard to play. But it is the most thought-provoking game. And it being uncomfortable, I understand, is like exactly what they were going for, right?
Yeah.
And that adds to the beauty of it. It's the most thought-provoking game I've ever played. I think about it. Last night I did nothing but dream about it, laying in bed just thinking about this game. And I don't have an experience with a game that has lasted with me like that, and I'm sure for the next 2 weeks I'm going to be thinking about it more and more. So, I mean, even though it's a game that, was difficult for me to play, difficult for me to get through, it's a 10 out of 10. As weird as, that might sound, like, It's a game that just sticks with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. First ever full.
That's going to be my only 10 out of 10. I'm telling you right now. Like, I don't think I'll ever give
Our full agreement on the couch.
10 out of 10. Put the gob stamp on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is the gob game of the century.
It's just masterfully done how they lay out breadcrumbs, and I've been talking a lot. Breadcrumbs, and it's like just enough to get you to connect the dots yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't over explain. It never like tries to break it down for you. It's so much of it's up to interpretation, and they give you just enough to pique your interest and make you want to connect those dots.
And think for yourself.
Yep.
I mean, so like we've been putting together like top 10s, top 20s, and like every game that I've been to do, but every game in my top 20, it's a game like John said. I'm still thinking about these games months, years after I played them, the impact that it had on me. So like, it's definitely in my top 20 games I've played.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment, tell us what you thought about the game. Send us emails. We're going to do some email episodes in the future. And tell your friends about it. And if you made it to this point in the podcast, thank you for listening this long to us talk. We appreciate you very much. And up next is Paul's turn to pick.
My pick. Yes, so I've been kicking around the idea of playing so many games. I've been texting John, Dreidel, and Jay like, oh, what about this game? What about this game? But I finally came to a consensus on what I'm going to pick. We're going to go back to hell. We're going to play Doom Eternal.
Ooh. Doom Eternal up next. Have you guys played the first Doom reboot? Interesting. It'll be cool to see your perspective versus ours.
Yeah, so I'm excited because like what I read, like I played Doom 2016 and I read like Doom Eternal is a very different game from Doom 2016, a game that I loved. So I'm excited.
Cool. So
Cool.
Join us back in 2 weeks and we'll be discussing Doom Eternal. Paul will be a moderator. And once again, thank you for listening. What are you doing in my waters?
Cats are so smart.
Right.
Just entertain themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's the best.
They're whimsical.